Deuteronomy. These are the words that Moses spoke to all Israel on the east side of the Jordan in the desert, in the plain over against the Red Sea, between Paran, and Tophel, and Laban, and Hazeroth, and Dizahab. It is an 11-day journey from Horeb by the way of Mount Seir to Kadesh-barnea. In the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month, Moses spoke to the children of Israel according to all that Yahweh had commanded him concerning them. After he had killed Sihon the king of the Amorites, that lived in Heshbon, and Og the king of Bashan, that lived in Ashtaroth in Edrei. On the east side of Jordan, in the land of Moab, Moses began to declare this law saying, Yahweh Elohim spoke to us in Horeb saying, You have lived long enough in this mountain. Turn and pull up stakes, and go to the hill country of the Amorites. Then to all the neighboring regions, in the plain, in the hills, and in the valley, in the Negev and along the coast, to the land of the Canaanites, and to Lebanon, to the great river, the river Euphrates. Look, I have set the land before you, so go in and possess the land that Yahweh adjured to your forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give to them and to their offspring after them. And I spoke to you at that time saying, I am not able to bear you myself alone. Yahweh Elohim has multiplied you, and you are this day as the stars of the universe for multitude. Yahweh Elohim of your forefathers makes you 1,000 times greater than you are, and does bless you as he has promised you. How can I myself alone bear your burden, and your load, and your disputes? Choose some wise men of understanding and distinguished among your tribes, and I will make them chiefs over you. And you answered me and said, The thing that you have spoken is good for us to do. So I took the chief of your tribes, wise and distinguished men, and made them chiefs over you, captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, and captains over 50s, and captains over 10s, and officers among your tribes. And I charged your judges at that time saying, Hear the cases between your relatives and judge righteously between every man and his brother, and the foreigner that is with him. You will not show partiality in judgment, but you will hear the small as well as the great. Do not be afraid of any man, for the judgment is Elohim's, and the cause that is too hard for you, bring it to me and I will hear it. And I commanded you at that time all the things that you should do. Then when we departed from Horeb, we went through all that vast and dreadful desert that you have seen, the way of the hill country of the Amorite, as Yahweh Elohim has commanded us, and then we came in unto Kadesh-barnea. And I said to you, You are come to the hill country of the Amorites that Yahweh Elohim will give to us. Look here, Yahweh Elohim has set the land before you, so go up and possess it as Yahweh Elohim of your ancestors has promised to you. Fear not, neither be discouraged. Then you came near to me every one of you and said, We will send men before us, and they will explore the land, and bring us word again by what route we must go up, and into what cities we shall come. The idea sounded good, and I took 12 men from you, one from each tribe, and they turned and went up into the hill country, and came to the valley of Eshcol and spied it out. They took of the fruit of the land in their hands, and brought it down to us, and brought us word back and said, It is a good land that Yahweh Elohim will give us. Nevertheless you would not go up, but rebelled against the commandment of Yahweh Elohim. And you murmured in your tents and said, Because Yahweh hated us, he has brought us out of the land of Egypt, to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us. Where can we go up? Our kinsmen have discouraged our heart, saying, The people are greater and taller than us, the cities are great and fortified to the skies, and in addition we have seen the sons of the Anakims, the race of giants, there. Then I said to you, Fear not, do not be afraid of them. Yahweh Elohim that goes before you, he will fight for you, according to all that he did for you in Egypt before your eyes. And in the uninhabited land you saw how Yahweh Elohim sustained you, as a man sustains his son, in all the distances you have traversed until you came to this place. Still in this thing you did not believe Yahweh Elohim, who went in the journey before you, to search you out a place to pitch your tents in, by supernatural fire by night to show you what route you should go, and by the cloud mass by day. Yahweh heard the voice of your words and was angry, and adjured saying, Certainly not even one of these men from this bad generation will see the good land that I adjured to give to your fathers. Except for Caleb the son of Jephunneh, he will see it, and to him I will give the land that he has marched on, and to his children, because he has wholly followed Yahweh. Also Yahweh was angry with me on your account, saying, You also will not go into it. But Joshua the son of Nun, that stands before you, he will go into it, so encourage him, because he will cause Israel to inherit it. Also your infants that you said would be a prey, and your sons who this day had no knowledge between good and bad, they will enter the land, and to them I will give it, and they will possess it. But as for you, turn back and take your journey into the desert by the way of the Red Sea. Then you answered and said to me, We have sinned against Yahweh, we will go up and fight, according to all that Yahweh Elohim commanded us. And when you had girded on every man his weapons of war, you were ready to go up into the hill country. And YHWH spoke to me, say to them, go not up, neither fight because I am not among you unless you are beaten before your enemies. So I spoke to you but you would not hear, but rebelled against the commandment of YHWH, and went presumptuously up into the hill country. Then the Amorites, that lived in that hill country, came out against you, and chased you, as bees do, and destroyed you in Seir, even unto Hormah. And you returned and wept before YHWH, but YHWH would not hear your voice, nor listen to you. So you resided in Kadesh many days, according to the days that you lived there. Then we turned back and took our journey into the desert by the way of the Red Sea, as YHWH spoke to me, and we encircled Mount Seir many days. YHWH spoke to me saying, you have encircled this mountain long enough, now turn north. And command the people saying, you are to pass through the border of your kinsmen, the children of Esau, that live in Seir, and they will be afraid of you, so be very cautious, not to meddle with them, because I will not give you of their land, no, not so much as a foot of it. This is because I have given Mount Seir to Esau for a possession. You will buy meat from them for money, that you may eat, and you will also buy water from them for money, that you may drink. Because YHWH alone has blessed you in all the works of your hand, he knows you're walking through this vast desert these 40 years, and YHWH alone has been with you, and you have lacked nothing. And when we passed by our kinsmen, the children of Esau that lived in Seir, through the way of the plain from Elath, and from Ezion-Geber, and turning, we went by the route through the wasteland of Moab. And YHWH spoke to me, distress not the Moabites, neither contend with them in battle, because I will not give you of their land for a possession, because I have given Ar to the children of Lot for a possession. The Emims resided there in times past, a people great and many, and tall as the Anakims, that also were accounted giants, as the Anakims, but the Moabites call them Emims. The Horims also lived in Seir in former times, but the children of Esau succeeded them, when they had destroyed them from before them, and lived in their places. Israel did unto the land of his possession, that YHWH gave to them. Now, rise up, I said, and get yourselves over the Brookserd. And we went over the Brookserd. And the days that we have walked from Kadesh-barnea until we have passed over the Brookserd were 38 years, until the consumption of all that generation of the men of battle, from among those of the camp, as YHWH has adjured to them. For indeed the hand of YHWH was against them, to destroy them from among the camp, until they were consumed. So it came to pass, when all the men of war were consumed and dead from among the people, then YHWH spoke to me, saying, you are to pass over through Ar, the coast of Moab, this day, and when you approach the children of Ammon, distress them not, nor meddle with them, for I will not give you any of the land of the people of Ammon as a possession, because I have bestowed it to the descendants of Lot as a possession. That also was accounted a land of giants. Giants lived there in former times, and the Ammonites call them Zamzamims, a large people, strong and tall as the Anakims, but YHWH destroyed them before them, and they succeeded them, and resided in their place. As he did to the children of Esau that lived in Seir, when he destroyed the Horims from before them, and they succeeded them and lived in their place even to this day. And the Avims that lived in Hazerim, even to Azza, the Caphtorims, that came out of Caphtor, destroyed them, and resided in their place. Rise you up now and take your journey, and pass over the river Arnon. Look, I have given into your hand Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his land, so begin to possess it and contend with him in battle. This day I will begin to put the dread of you and the fear of you upon the nations that are under the whole sky. They will hear a report of you and will tremble and be in anguish because of you. And I sent messengers out of the Kedemoth desert to Sihon king of Heshbon with words of peace, saying, let me pass through your land, and I will go along by the highway, I will neither turn to the right hand or to the left. You will sell me meat for money that I may eat, and give me water for money, that I may drink, only let me go through on foot. As the children of Esau that live in Seir, and the Moabites that live in Ar, did unto me, until I will pass over Jordan into the land that YHWH alone gives us. But Sihon king of Heshbon would not let us pass by him, for YHWH alone hardened his spirit and made his heart obstinate, that he might deliver him into your hand, as now you see. And YHWH spoke to me, look, I have begun to give Sihon and his land before you, so begin to possess it, so that you may inherit his land. Then Sihon came out against us, he and all his people, to fight at Jahaz. And YHWH alone delivered him before us, and we killed him, and his sons, and all his people. And we took all his cities at that time, and devoted to destruction the men and the women, and the children from every city. We left none to remain. Only the cattle we took for a prey to ourselves, and the spoil of the cities which we seized. From Aroer, that is by the brink of the river of Arnon, and from the city that is by the river, even to Gilead, there was not one city too strong for us. YHWH alone delivered all of it to us. Only to the land of the children of Ammon you did not come near, all the side of the Jabbok ravine, nor to the cities of the hill country, nor to whatever Yhwh Elohim forbid us. Then we turned, and went up the road to Bashan, and Og the king of Bashan came out against us, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. And Yhwh spoke to me, Fear him not, because I will deliver him and all his people and his land into your hand, and you will do to him as you did to Sihon king of the Amorites that lived at Heshbon. So Yhwh Elohim delivered into our hands Og also, the king of Bashan, and all his people, and we conquered him until no survivor was left remaining. And we capture all his cities at that time, there had not been a city that we have not taken from them, 60 cities, all the region of Argob, the kingdom of Og in Bashan. All these cities were fenced with high walls, gates, and bars, besides a great many unwalled towns. And we devoted to destruction those, as we did to Sihon king of Heshbon, executing genocide on all the men, women, and children from every city. But all the cattle, and the booty from the cities, we took for a spoil to ourselves. And we took at that time, the land out of the hand of the 2 kings of the Amorite, which is beyond the Jordan, from the brook Arnon to Mount Hermon, which Hermon the Sidonians call Sirion and the Amorites call it Shanir. All the cities of the plain and all Gilead, and all Bashan to Salca and Edrei, cities of the kingdom of Og in Bashan. For only Og king of Bashan had been left of the remnant of the Rephaim, old race of giants. Note that his bedstead was a bedstead of iron, and it is still in Rabbath of the sons of Ammon. It is 13 feet long and 6 feet wide. And this land that we possessed at that time, from Aroer that is by the river Arnon, and half the hill country of Gilead with its cities, I gave to the Reubenites and Gadites. And the rest of Gilead and all Bashan, being the kingdom of Og, I gave to the half-tribe of Manasseh, all the region of Argob, with all Bashan, that was called the land of Rephaim, old race of giants. Yer the son of Manasseh took all the country of Argob to the coasts of Geshuri and Maachati, and called them after his own name, Bashan-Aboth-Yair to this day. I gave Gilead to Machir. And to the Reubenites and Gadites I gave from Gilead even to the river Arnon half the valley, and the border even to the river Jabbok, that is the border of the children of Ammon. The plain also and Jordan and its coasts, from Kinnereth even to the sea of the plain, even the salt sea, under the springs of Pisgah eastward. And I commanded you at that time, saying, Yhwh Elohim has given you this land to possess it, armed you will pass over before your kinsmen, the sons of Israel, all the sons of valor. But your women and your children, and your cattle, because I know that you have much cattle, will remain in your cities that I have given you. Until Yhwh has given rest to your kinsmen, as well as to you, and until they also possess the land that Yhwh Elohim has given them beyond Jordan, and then you will return every man to his possession that I have given you. And I commanded Joshua at that time, saying, Your eyes have seen all that Yhwh Elohim has done to these 2 kings, so will Yhwh do to all the kingdoms where you march over. You will not fear them, because Yhwh Elohim will fight for you. And I besought Yhwh at that time, saying, O Adonai Yhwh, you have begun to show your servant your greatness, and your mighty hand, for what Elohim is there in the universe or on earth that can duplicate your works, and according to your mighty deeds? I pray you, let me pass over and see the good land that is beyond Jordan, that goodly mountain and Lebanon. But Yhwh was angry with me on account of you and would not hear me, and Yhwh said to me, Enough from you, speak no more to me of this matter. Get yourself up to the top of Pisgah, and raise up your eyes to the west, north, south, and east, and examine it with your eyes, but you will not pass over this Jordan. But commission Joshua and encourage him, and strengthen him, because he will pass over before this people, and he will cause them to inherit the land that you will see. So we stayed in the valley near Beth Peor. Now listen, O Israel, to the statutes and the judgments that I teach you, to institute them, so that you may live, and go in and possess the land that Yhwh Elohim of your forefathers bestows to you. You will not add to the word that I command you, neither will you diminish anything from it, that you may observe the commandments of Yhwh Elohim that I command you. Your eyes have seen what Yhwh did because of Baal-peor, for all the men that followed Baal-peor has Yhwh Elohim destroyed, from among you. But you that adhere to Yhwh Elohim are alive, every one of you, this day. Look, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as Yhwh Elohim commanded me, that you should observe them in the land where you go to possess. Observe and do them, because this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, that will hear all these statutes and say, Certainly this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great, that has Elohim so close to them, as Yhwh Elohim is in all things that we call upon him for? And what nation is there so great, that has statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law that I set before you this day? But take care and watch yourself diligently, unless you forget the things that your eyes have seen, and unless they depart from your heart all the days of your life, but teach them now to your children and your grandchildren. The day when you have stood before YHWH Elohim in Horeb, in YHWH is saying to me, assemble to me the people, and I will cause them to hear my words. They will then learn to fear me all the days that they are alive on the ground, and their children they will teach. And you approached and stood under the mountain, and the mountain burned with supernatural fire to the very skies, with dark clouds, cloud mass and obscurity. YHWH spoke to you out of the center of the supernatural fire. You heard the voice of the words but saw no form, but you only heard a voice. And he declared to you his covenant that he commanded you to perform, which were the 10 Commandments, and he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone. Then YHWH commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, that you might observe them in the land where you pass over to possess. So keep watch on yourselves with carefulness, because you saw no form of any sort on the day when the voice of YHWH came to you in Horeb out of the center of the supernatural fire. Unless you corrupt yourselves and make yourselves a graven image, the representation of any image, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any animal that is on the land, the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. And unless you lift up your eyes to the skies, and when you see the sun, moon and the stars, even all the whole creation of the universe, and then should be driven to worship them and serve them, that YHWH Elohim has apportioned to all the peoples under the whole cosmos. But YHWH has taken you, and brought you out of the iron furnace, even out of Egypt, to be to him a people of inheritance, as you are this day. Furthermore, YHWH was angry with me on your account and adjured that I should not pass over Jordan, and that I should not enter into the good land that YHWH Elohim bestows to you for an inheritance. But I must die in this land, I must not pass over Jordan, but you will pass over and possess that good land. Now watch yourselves unless you forget the covenant of YHWH Elohim that he made with you, and you fashion a graven image or the likeness of anything that YHWH Elohim has forbidden you. For YHWH Elohim is a devouring supernatural fire, even a jealous Elohim. When you will gender children and grandchildren, and you will have remained long in the land, and will corrupt yourselves, and make a graven image, or the likeness of anything, and will do bad in the sight of YHWH your Elohim to provoke him to anger. I call the cosmos and earth to witness against you this day, that you will soon utterly perish from off the land where you pass over Jordan to possess it. You will not perpetuate your days upon it, but will be utterly destroyed. And YHWH will scatter you among the nations, and you will be left few in number among the Gentiles, wherever YHWH will lead you. And there you will serve Elohim, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, that neither see nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. But if from there you will seek YHWH Elohim, you will find him, if you seek him with all your heart and with your entire mind. When you are in tribulation, and all these things are come on you, even in the end times, if you turn to YHWH Elohim and will be obedient to his voice. Because YHWH Elohim is a merciful Elohim, he will not forsake you, neither destroy you, nor forget the covenant of your ancestors that he adjured to them. For ask now of the days that are past that were before you, since the day that Elohim created man upon the earth. Ask from the one side of the cosmos to the other whether there has been any such thing as this important matter heard. Did a people ever hear the voice of Elohim speaking out of the center of the supernatural fire, as you have heard and remain alive? Or has Elohim tried to go in to take to himself a nation out from another nation, by trials, signs, miracles, war, a strong hand and a stretched out arm, and by great terrors, according to all that YHWH Elohim has done for you in Egypt and before your eyes? To you it was shown so that you might know that YHWH, he is Elohim, and there is no one else besides him. From the skies he made you to hear his voice, that he might instruct you, and upon the earth he showed you his intense supernatural fire, and you heard his words out of the center of that supernatural fire. And because he loved your forefathers he then elected their offspring after them, and brought you out in his sight with his mighty power out of Egypt, to drive out nations from before you larger and mightier than you are, to bring you in to give you their land for an inheritance, as it is this day. Know this day and consider it in your heart that YHWH, he is Elohim, in the cosmos above and upon the earth beneath, and there is none else. You will observe his statutes, and his commandments that I command you this day, so that it may go well with you, and with your children after you, and that you may perpetuate your days upon the land, that YHWH Elohim wholly gives to you. Then Moses set aside 3 cities beyond the Jordan toward the eastern sun rising, that the slayer might flee there, who kills his neighbor unintentionally, but did not hate him in times past, and that fleeing to one of these cities he might remain alive. Namely, Bethser in the wilderness, in the plain country, of the Reubenites, and Ramoth in Gilead, of the Gadites, and Golan in Bashan, of the Manassites. And this is the law that Moses set before the children of Israel. These are the testimonies, statutes, and judgments that Moses spoke to the children of Israel, after they came out of Egypt, on this side of Jordan, in the valley near Beth Peor, in the land of Sihon king of the Amorites, who resided at Heshbon, whom Moses and the children of Israel conquered, after they were come out of Egypt. And they possessed his land, and the land of Og, king of Bashan, 2 kings of the Amorites, that were on this side Jordan toward the eastern sun rising from Aroer, which is by the bank of the river Arnon, even to Mount Sion that is Hermon. And all the plain on this side Jordan eastward, even to the sea of the plain, under the springs of Pisgah. Then Moses called all Israel and said to them, Hear, O Israel, the statutes and judgments that I speak in your ears this day, that you may learn them and observe and institute them. YHWH alone made a covenant with us in Horeb. YHWH did not make this covenant with our forefathers but with us, we, these here today, all of us that are alive. YHWH talked with you face to face in the mountain out of the center of the supernatural fire. I stood between YHWH and you at that time, to show you the word of YHWH because you were afraid by reason of the supernatural fire, and did not go up into the mountain. Then he said, I am YHWH alone that brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. 1. You will have no other alone before me. 2. You will not make to yourselves any idol or any image of anything that is in cosmos above, or that is in the land, or that is in the water. You will not bow down yourself to them nor serve them, for I, YHWH your Elohim, am a jealous Elohim, punishing the depravity of the fathers upon the children to the 3rd and 4th generation of those that hate me, and showing goodness to thousands of them that love me, and observe my commandments. 3. You will not take the name of YHWH your Elohim in vain, for YHWH will not hold him guiltless that takes his name in vain. 4. Remember the Sabbath day is consecrated. 6 days shall you labor, and do all your work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of YHWH your Elohim, in it you will not do any work, you, your son, daughter, male and female slave, livestock, nor the foreigner that resides within your gates, so that your male and female slave may rest as well as you. And remember that you were slaves in the land of Egypt, and that YHWH Elohim brought you out by a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm, therefore YHWH Elohim commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. 5. Honor your father and your mother, as YHWH Elohim has commanded you, that your days may be long on the land, that YHWH your Elohim gives you. 6. You will not murder. 7. You will not commit adultery. 8. You will not steal. 9. You will not testify as a false witness against another person. 10. You will not covet another person's house, you will not covet another man's woman, nor his male or female slave, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is another person's. These words YHWH spoke to all your company in the mountain out of the center of the supernatural fire, from the cloud mass and the thick clouds, with a great voice, and he added no more. And he wrote them in 2 tablets of stone, and delivered them to me. And it came to pass as you heard the voice out of the center of the darkness, and from the mountain burning with supernatural fire, that you approached me, all the chiefs of your tribes and your elders. And you said, Look, YHWH alone has shown us his glory and his greatness, and we have heard his voice out of the center of the supernatural fire. We have seen this day that alone does talk with man and that he remains alive. But now why should we die? For this intense supernatural fire will consume us if we hear the voice of YHWH alone any more, then we will die. For who is there of all flesh, that has heard the voice of the living Elohim speaking out of the center of the supernatural fire, as we have, and remained alive? Approach yourself near, and hear all that YHWH alone will say, and you speak to us all that YHWH alone will speak to you, and we will hear it and do it. And YHWH heard the voice of your words when you spoke to me, and YHWH said to me, I have heard the voice of the words of this people that they have spoken to you, and they have spoken well all that they have said. Oh, that there were such a heart in them, that they would fear me and observe all my commandments daily, that it might be well with them and with their children for the ages. Go tell them to return to your tents again. But as for you, stand here by me and I will speak to you all the commandments, statutes and judgments, that you will teach them that they may observe them in the land that I give them to possess. You will observe to do as YHWH alone has commanded you. You will not turn aside to the right hand or to the left. You will walk in all the ways that YHWH alone has commanded you, that you may remain alive, and that it may be well with you, and that you may perpetuate your days in the land that you will possess. Now these are the commandments, statutes, and judgments that YHWH alone commanded to teach you, that you might observe them in the land where you pass over to take possession of. That you might fear YHWH alone, to observe all his statutes and commandments that I charge you with, you and your son and grandsons, all the days of your life, and that your days may be perpetuated. Hear now, O Israel, and observe to do them, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase exceedingly, as Yhwh Elohim of your forefathers has promised you, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yhwh Elohim is the one and only Yhwh. And you will love Yhwh Elohim with all your heart and with your entire mind, and with all your might. These words that I command you this day will be in your heart. And you will teach them diligently to your children, and will talk of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down and when you rise up. You will bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they will be as marks between your eyes. You will write them upon the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And it will be when Yhwh Elohim will have brought you into the land that he adjured to your forefathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give you large and excellent cities that you did not construct, and houses full of all good things that you have not filled, and wells dug that you have not excavated, vineyards and olive yards that you have not planted, and you have eaten and been satisfied. Then beware unless you forget Yhwh that brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. You will fear Yhwh Elohim and serve him, and will adjure by his name. You will not go after other Elohim, of the Elohim of the people that are around you. Because Yhwh Elohim is a jealous Elohim among you, unless the anger of Yhwh Elohim burn against you and destroy you from off the face of the ground. You will not test Yhwh Elohim, as you tested him in Massah. You will diligently observe the commandments of Yhwh your Elohim, and his testimonies and statutes that he has commanded you. And you will observe what is right and good in the sight of Yhwh, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the good land that Yhwh adjured to your forefathers, to cast out all your enemies from before you, as Yhwh has spoken. And when your son asks you in times to come, saying, What do these testimonies, statutes, and judgments mean that Yhwh Elohim has commanded you? Then you will say to your son, We were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, and Yhwh brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And Yhwh showed signs and miracles, intense and very bad ones, upon Egypt and upon Pharaoh and his entire household, before our very eyes. He brought us out from there so that he might bring us in, to give us the land that he adjured to our forefathers. And Yhwh commanded us to observe all these statutes, to fear Yhwh Elohim, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive, as it is this day. These will be our righteousness, if we observe to do all these commandments before Yhwh Elohim, as he has commanded us. When Yhwh Elohim will bring you into the land where you go to possess, and has cast out many nations before you, the Hittites, Girgashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and stronger than yourself. And when Yhwh Elohim will deliver them before you, you will attack them and devote to destruction all of them, performing genocide. You will make no covenant with them, nor show mercy to them. Neither will you make marriages with them. Your daughter you will not give to his son, nor his daughter will you take for your son. For they will turn away your son from following me, that they may serve other Elohim, so will the nostrils of Yhwh flare against you and destroy you suddenly. But this is how you will deal with them: you will destroy their altars, and break down their images, and cut down their groves, and burn their graven images with fire. Because you are a holy people to Yhwh Elohim, and Yhwh Elohim has chosen you to be a special people to himself, above all people that are upon the face of the whole inhabited earth. Yhwh did not set his love upon you, nor choose you because you were a great number of people, but you were the fewest of all peoples. But because Yhwh loved you, and because he would keep the oath that he had adjured to your forefathers, has Yhwh brought you out with a mighty hand, and ransomed you out of the house of slavery, from the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt. Know now that Yhwh Elohim, he is Elohim, the faithful Elohim that keeps his covenant pledge and mercy with them that love him and guards his commandments to 1,000 generations. And repays them that hate him to their face, to destroy them. He will not be slack to him that hates him, he will repay him to his face. You will observe the commandments and the statutes, and judgments that I command you this day, to institute them. If you pay heed to these judgments, and observe and institute them, then Yhwh Elohim will perform for you the covenant pledge and the mercy that he adjured to your fathers. And he will love and bless you, and multiply you. He will also bless the fruit of your womb, and the fruit of your land, your corn and wine, and your oil, the increase of your cattle, and the flocks of your sheep, in the land that he adjured to your forefathers to give to you. You will be blessed above all people. There will not be a male or female sterile among you, or among your cattle. Yhwh will take away from you all sickness, and will put none of the bad diseases of Egypt that you know about upon you, but will lay them on all them that hate you. You will consume all the people that YHWH alone will deliver to you, your eye will have no pity on them, and neither will you serve their Elohim because that would be a snare to you. If you will say in your heart, these nations are greater than I, so how could I dispossess them? You will not be afraid of them, but will well remember what YHWH alone did to Pharaoh and to all Egypt. The great testing that your eyes saw, and the signs, miracles, and the mighty hand and stretched out arm, with which YHWH alone brought you out, so will YHWH alone do likewise to all the people of whom you are afraid. And also the hornet will YHWH alone send among them, until the destruction of those who are left and of those who are hidden from your presence. You will not be terrified of them because YHWH alone is among you, a mighty alone and to be feared. And YHWH alone will clear away those nations before you little by little, you will not consume them all at once, unless the animals of the field multiply upon you. But YHWH alone will deliver them to you, and will destroy them with a mighty destruction, until they are destroyed. He will deliver their kings into your hand, and you will destroy their name from under the skies, no men will station themselves in your presence until you have destroyed them. The graven images of their Elohim you will burn with fire, you will not desire the silver or gold that is on them nor take it to yourselves, unless you are snared by it because it is a disgusting thing to YHWH alone. Neither will you bring a disgusting thing into your house, unless you become a cursed thing like it, but you will detest and count it filthy and will abhor the abomination because it's devoted to destruction. All the commandments that I command you this day will you observe and institute so that you may live and multiply, and go in and possess the land that YHWH adjured to your forefathers. You will remember all the journeys that YHWH alone led you through these 40 years in the uninhabited lands, to humble you and to test you, to know what was in your heart and whether you would observe his commandments or not. And he humbled you and made you to be hungry. Then he fed you with manna that you did not acknowledge, neither did your fathers acknowledge, so that he might make you recognize that man does not live by bread only, but by every word that issues forth out of the mouth of YHWH is what man will live by. Your clothing did not wear out on you, neither did your feet become blistered these 40 years. You will also consider in your heart, that as a man corrects his son, so YHWH alone corrects you. Therefore you will observe the commandments of YHWH alone, to walk in his ways and to fear him. Because YHWH alone brings you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and deep places that spring out of valleys and hills. A land of wheat, barley, vines, fig trees, and pomegranates, a land of oil, olive, and honey. A land where you will eat bread without scarceness, you will not lack anything in it, a land whose stones are iron ore, and out of whose hills you may quarry copper ore. When you have eaten and are full, then you will bless YHWH alone for the good land that he has given you. Beware that you forget not YHWH alone, in not observing his commandments, judgments, and his statutes that I command you this day. Unless when you have eaten and are full, and have constructed quality homes and have lived in them. And when your herds and flocks multiply, and your silver and gold is increased, and all that you have has greatly enlarged. Then your heart becomes lofty, and you forget YHWH alone that brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of slavery. Who led you through that vast and terrible desert, where there were fiery snakes and scorpions, and drought where there was no water, which brought you water gushing forth out of the flinty rock. Who fed you in the desert with manna that your fathers did not acknowledge that he might humble you, and that he might test you, to do you good in your end times. And you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand has gotten me this wealth. But you will remember YHWH alone because it is he that gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant that he adjured to your fathers as it is this day. And it will be, if you do indeed forget all that YHWH alone did, and walk after other Elohim and serve and worship them, I testify against you this day that you will certainly perish. As the nations that YHWH destroyed before your face, so will you perish because you would not be obedient to the voice of YHWH alone. Hear, O Israel, you are to pass over Jordan this day, to enter and dispossess nations greater and stronger than yourself, cities great and fortified to the skies, a people great and tall, the children of the Anakims, race of giants, who you know, and of which you have heard said, who can stand before the children of Anak. Understand therefore this day, that YHWH alone is he that passes over before you as a consuming supernatural fire and will destroy them, and will bring them down in your presence, so you will drive them out and destroy them quickly, as YHWH has commanded you. Now do not say to yourself after YHWH alone has cast them out from before you saying, because of my righteousness YHWH has brought me in to possess this land, but for the wickedness of these nations YHWH does drive them out from before you. Not because of your righteousness, Or for the uprightness of your heart will you go to possess their land? But for the wickedness of these nations YHWH alone will drive them out from before you so that he may perform the word that YHWH adjured to your forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Understand therefore that YHWH alone gives you not this good land to possess it for your righteousness because you are a stiff of neck people. Remember, and forget not how you provoked YHWH alone to anger in the desert, from the day that you departed out of the land of Egypt, until you came to this place, you have been rebellious against YHWH. Also in Horeb you provoked YHWH to anger, so that YHWH was angry with you to have destroyed you. When I was gone up into the mountain to receive the tablets of stone, even the tablets of the covenant that YHWH made with you, then I remained in the mountain 40 days and 40 nights, I neither ate bread nor drank water. And YHWH delivered to me 2 tablets of stone written with the finger of alone, and on them were written according to all the words that YHWH spoke with you in the mountain out of the center of the supernatural fire in the day of the assembly. Then at the end of 40 days and 40 nights YHWH gave me the 2 tablets of stone, even the tablets of the covenant. And YHWH spoke to me, Arise, get down quickly from here because your people that you have brought out of Egypt have corrupted themselves, they are quickly turned aside out of the way that I commanded them, they have fashioned themselves a molten metal image. Furthermore YHWH spoke to me saying, I have seen this people and they are a stiff of neck people. Let me alone, that I may destroy them and blot out their name from under the skies, and I will make of you a nation numerous and greater than they. So I turned and came down from the mountain, and the mountain burned with supernatural fire, and the 2 tablets of the covenant were in my 2 hands. I looked and behold, you had sinned against YHWH alone, and had fashioned yourself a molten metal calf. You had turned aside quickly out of the way that YHWH had commanded you. And I took the 2 tablets, and cast them out of my 2 hands, and broke them before your eyes. And I fell down before YHWH, as at the first, 40 days and 40 nights, I did neither eat bread nor drink water, because of all your sins that you had sinned, in doing wickedly in the sight of YHWH, to provoke him to anger. Because I was afraid of the anger and hot displeasure, which YHWH was angry against you to destroy you. But YHWH listened to me at that time also. And YHWH was very angry with Aaron to have destroyed him, and I prayed for Aaron also at that same time. And I took your sin, the calf that you had made, and burnt it with fire and stamped it and ground it very small, even until it was as small as dust, and I cast its dust into the brook that descended out of the mountain. And at Taberah, Massah, and Kibroth Hattaavah you provoked YHWH to anger. Likewise when YHWH sent you from Kadesh-barnea saying, Go up and possess the land that I have given you, then you rebelled against the commandment of YHWH, Elohim, and you believed him not, nor hearkened to his voice. You have been rebellious against YHWH from the day that I knew you. So I fell down before YHWH 40 days and 40 nights, as I fell down at the first, because YHWH had said he would destroy you. I prayed therefore to YHWH and said, O Adonai YHWH, destroy not your people and your inheritance that you have ransomed through your greatness, that you have brought out of Egypt with a mighty hand. Remember your slaves, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, look not to the stubbornness of this people, nor to their wickedness, nor to their sin. Unless the land where you brought us out utters, because YHWH was not able to bring them into the land that he promised them, and because he hated them, he has brought them out to slay them in the desert. Yet they are your people and your inheritance, that you brought out by your mighty power and by your stretched out arm. At that time YHWH spoke to me, Cut yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first, and come up into the mountain to me and fashion yourself an ark, chest, of wood. And I will write on the tablets the words that were in the first tablets that you broke, and you will put them into the ark. Then I fashioned an ark of shittim wood, and cut 2 tablets of stone like the first, and went up into the mountain, having the 2 tablets in my hand. He wrote on the tablets, according to the first writing, the 10 commandments, that YHWH spoke to you in the mountain out of the center of the supernatural fire in the day of the assembly, and YHWH gave them to me. And I turned myself and came down from the mountain and put the tablets into the ark that I had fashioned, and there they are as YHWH commanded me. And the children of Israel took their journey from Beerot of the children of Jachan to Mosera, there Aaron died and there he was buried. And Eleazar his son served as priest in the priesthood in his place. From there they journeyed to Gudgodah, and from Gudgodah to Jotbath, a land of rivers of waters. At that time YHWH separated the tribe of Levi, to bear the ark of the covenant of YHWH, to stand before YHWH to serve unto him and to bless in his name to this day. Therefore Levi has no part or inheritance with his kinsmen, YHWH is his inheritance, according as YHWH Elohim promised him. And I stayed in the mountain, according to the first time, 40 days and 40 nights, and YHWH listened to me at that time also, and YHWH would not destroy you. YHWH spoke to me, Arise, take your journey before the people, that they may go in and possess the land that I adjured to their forefathers to give to them. And now Israel, what does YHWH Elohim require of you, but to fear YHWH Elohim, to walk in all his ways and to love him, and to serve YHWH Elohim with all your heart and with all your mind, to observe the commandments of YHWH, and his statutes, that I command you this day for your good? Consider, the sky and the cosmos of the universe are YHWH Elohim's, the earth also with all that is in it. Only YHWH had a delight in your fathers to love them, and he chose their offspring after them, even you above all people, as it is this day. Circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff of neck. For YHWH Elohim is Elohim of Elohim, and Master of Masters, a distinguished Elohim, a strong and dreadful, that regards not persons, nor takes reward. He will execute the judgment of the fatherless and widow, and loves the foreigner, in giving him food and clothing. You must love the foreigner because you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. You will fear YHWH Elohim, him you will serve and to him you will cleave, and adjure by his name. He is your praise, and he is your Elohim, that has done for you these distinguished and dreadful things, that your eyes have seen. Your forefathers went down into Egypt with 70 people, and now YHWH Elohim has made you as the stars of the universe for multitude. Therefore you will love YHWH Elohim and observe his charge, and his statutes, judgments, and his commandments always. By now you know the discipline of YHWH, though your sons who have neither known or experienced it do not, you know his mighty power and his strong hand and outstretched arm. And his miracles and his acts, that he did in the belly of Egypt to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and to all his land. And what he did to the army of Egypt, to their horses and to their chariots, how he made the water of the Red Sea to overflow them as they pursued after you, and how YHWH has destroyed them to this day. And what he did to you in the desert, until you came into this region. Also what he did to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, the son of Reuben, how the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up, and their households and their tents, and all their living substance that was in their possession among every one of Israel. But your eyes have seen all these great acts of YHWH that he did. Therefore you will observe all the commandments that I command you this day, that you may be strong and go in and possess the land, where you are going to possess. So that you may perpetuate your days in the land, that YHWH adjured to your forefathers to give to them and to their offspring, a land that flows with milk and honey. For the land where you go to possess is not like the land of Egypt, from where you came out, where you sowed your seed and watered it with your foot, as a garden of green vegetables. But the land where you go to possess is a land of hills and valleys, and drinks water from the rain of the sky. A land that YHWH Elohim cares for, the eyes of YHWH Elohim are always upon it, from the beginning of the year even to the end of the year. Then if you will listen diligently to my commandments that I command you this day, to love YHWH Elohim, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your mind. That I will give you the rain of your land in its due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that you may gather, in your corn, and your wine and your oil. And I will send grass in your fields for your cattle, that you may eat and be full. Take heed to yourselves, that your heart is not deceived, and you turn aside and serve other Elohim, and worship them. And then YHWH's nostrils flared against you, and he shut up the sky, that there was no rain and that the land yielded not its fruit, unless you perish quickly from off the good land that YHWH gives you. Therefore you will establish these words of mine in your heart and in your mind, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as marks between your eyes. And you will teach them to your children, speaking of them when you sit in your house and when you walk on your journey, when you lie down and when you get up. You will write them on the doorposts of your house, and upon your gates, so that your days may be multiplied, and the days of your children in the land that YHWH adjured to your forefathers to bestow to them, as long as the skies hang over the earth. For if you will diligently observe all these commandments that I command you, to do them, to love YHWH your Elohim, to walk in all his ways and to stay close to him, then YHWH will drive out all these nations from before you, and you will possess greater nations that are stronger than yourselves. Every place that the soles of your feet will tread will be yours. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon and from the Euphrates River to the western, Mediterranean, sea. There no man will be able to stand before you, because YHWH alone will lay the fear of you and the dread of you upon all the land that you will tread upon, as he has declared to you. Look, I set before you this day a blessing and a curse. A blessing, if you obey the commandments of YHWH alone, that I command you this day. And a curse if you will not obey the commandments of YHWH alone, but turn aside out of the way that I command you today, to go after other Elohim that you have not known. When YHWH Elohim has brought you to the land where you travel to possess, then you will put the blessing upon Mount Gerizim, and the curse upon Mount Ebal. Are they not on the other side of Jordan, by the road where the sun goes down, in the land of the Canaanites, that live in the desert plains opposite Gilgal, beside the plains of Moreh? For you will pass over Jordan to go in to possess the land that YHWH Elohim bestows to you, and you will possess it and reside therein. You will observe to accomplish all the statutes and judgments that I set before you this day. These are the statutes and judgments that you will observe to do in the land that YHWH Elohim of your fathers bestows on you to possess for all the days that you live upon the earth. You will devote to destruction all the regions where the nations that you will possess had served their Elohim, upon the high mountains, and upon the hills and under every green tree. You will break down their altars and wreck their pillars, and burn their groves with fire, and you will chop down the graven images of their Elohim, and destroy the names of them out of those regions. You will not act like these pagans toward YHWH Elohim. But to the standing place that YHWH Elohim will choose out of all your tribes to put his name there, even to his dwelling will you seek, and to there you will come. Then you will bring your whole burnt offerings, sacrifices, and your tithes and heave offerings from your hand, and your vows, and your freewill offerings, and the firstborn of your herds and flocks. And there you will eat before YHWH Elohim, and you will rejoice in all that you put your hands to, you and your descendants where YHWH Elohim has blessed you. You will not do there the things we do here this day, every man what seems good to himself. For you have not yet come to your resting place and to the inheritance that YHWH Elohim bestows to you. But when you pass over Jordan and live in the land that YHWH Elohim bestows for you to inherit, and when he gives you rest from all your enemies around, so that you live in security, then there will be a place that YHWH Elohim will choose to cause his name to reside there. Then you will bring all that I command you, your whole burnt offerings and your sacrifices, your tithes and heave offering from your hand, and all your choice vows that you vow to YHWH. And you will rejoice before YHWH Elohim, you and your sons, and your daughters, and your male and female slaves, and a Levite that is within your gates, for as much as he has no part or inheritance with you. Take heed to yourself that you offer not your whole burnt offerings in every place you see. But in the place that YHWH will choose in one of your tribes, there you will offer your whole burnt offerings, and there you will do all that I command you. Only, with all your desire will you do sacrifice, and will eat flesh according to the blessing of YHWH Elohim that he has bestowed to you. In all your gates, the unclean and the clean will eat it, as of the gazelle and as of the hart. Only you will not eat the blood, you will pour it on the ground as water. You may not eat within your gates the tithe of your corn, wine, oil, or the firstborn from your herds or flock, nor any of your vows that you vow, nor your freewill offerings, or heave offering of your hand. But you must eat them before YHWH Elohim in the place that YHWH Elohim will choose. You and your son, and your daughter, and male and female slaves, and the Levite that is within your gates, and you will rejoice before YHWH Elohim in all that you put your hand to. Be careful to yourselves that you forsake not the Levite as long as you live upon the earth. When YHWH Elohim will enlarge your border, as he has promised you, and you will say, I will eat flesh because you long to eat flesh, you may eat flesh, whatever you desire after. If the standing place that YHWH Elohim has chosen to put his name there is too far from you, then you will slaughter from your herd and flock what YHWH has bestowed to you, as I have commanded you, and you will eat in your gates whatever you desire after. Even as the gazelle and the hart is eaten, so you will eat them, the unclean and the clean will eat of them alike. Only be sure that you do not eat the blood, because the blood, it is the life, and you may not eat the life with the flesh. You will not eat it, you will pour it on the ground as water. You will not eat it so that it may go well with you, and with your children after you, when you will do what is right in the sight of YHWH. Only your sacred things that you have and your vows you will take, and go to the place that YHWH will choose. You will offer your whole burnt offerings, the flesh and the blood, upon the altar of YHWH Elohim, and the blood of your sacrifices will be poured out on the altar of YHWH Elohim, and you will eat the flesh. Observe and hear all these words that I command you, that it may go well with you, and with your children after you for the ages, when you do what is good and right in the sight of YHWH Elohim. When YHWH Elohim will cut off the nations from before you, where you go to dispossess and seize from them and then reside in their land. Take heed to yourself that you are not snared by following them, after when they are destroyed from before you, and that you inquire not after their Elohim, saying, How do these nations serve their Elohim? Even so I will do the same. You will not do so to YHWH Elohim, because every abomination to YHWH, that he hates, have they done to their Elohim, for even their sons and their daughters they have burnt in the fire to their Elohim. Whatever things I command you, observe to do it, you will not add to it, nor subtract from it. If there arise among you a prophet, or a dreamer of dreams and gives you a sign or a portent, and the sign or the portent comes to pass that he spoke to you saying, Let us go after other Elohim, that you have not known and let us serve them. You will not listen to the words of that prophet, or that dreamer of dreams because YHWH Elohim tests you, to know whether you love YHWH Elohim with all your heart and with your entire mind. You will walk after YHWH Elohim, and fear him and observe his commandments, and obey his voice and will serve and stay close to him. And that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death because he has spoken to turn you away from YHWH Elohim, which brought you out of the land of Egypt. Who ransomed you out of the house of slavery, to seduce you out of the way that YHWH Elohim commanded you to walk in. So will you put the evil away from among you. If your brother, the son of your mother, or your son, or daughter, or the woman of your bosom, or friend who is like yourself, entices you secretly saying, Let us go and serve other Elohim that you have not known, you or your fathers. Namely, of Elohim from the people that surround you, near to you, or far off from you, from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth. You will not consent to him, nor listen to him, neither will your eye pity him, neither will you spare or will you hide him. But you will certainly execute him, your hand will be first upon him to put him to death, and afterwards the hand of all the people. And you will stone him with stones, that he dies because he has sought to thrust you away from YHWH Elohim, that brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of slavery. And all Israel will hear and be afraid, and no one will do any such evil thing as this among you. If you will hear it said in one of your cities, that YHWH Elohim has given you to dwell in, saying, Certain men, the children of Belial, worthlessness, are gone out from among you and have withdrawn the inhabitants of their city, saying, Let us go and serve other Elohim that you have not known. Then you will inquire and make search, and ask diligently, and if there is truth to it, and if the thing is certain that such a disgusting thing is done among you, you will certainly attack the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword, devoting to destruction all that is in it, and the cattle also with the edge of the sword. You will gather all the spoil of it into the middle of the street, and will burn with fire the city, and all the spoil of it, every item, for YHWH Elohim. And it will be a heap of ruins for the ages, and it will not be built again. And there will not cling to your hands any of the things devoted to destruction, so that YHWH will turn back from the fierceness of his anger, and has given to you mercies, and loved you and multiplied you, as he has adjured to your fathers, because you will listen to the voice of YHWH Elohim, to observe all his commandments that I command you this day, to do what is right in the eyes of YHWH Elohim. You are the children of YHWH Elohim, you will not cut yourselves or shave your forehead for the dead. For you are a sacred people to YHWH Elohim, and YHWH has chosen you to be a nation treasured to himself, above all the nations that are on the earth. You will not eat any disgusting things. These are the animals that you will eat, the ox, sheep, goat, hart, gazelle, red-colored deer, wild goat, antelope, wild ox, and the mountain goat. And every animal that has a divided hoof, split in two and bringing up the cud, among the beasts, those you can eat. Only, this you will not eat, of those bringing up the cud, and of those dividing the cloven hoof, the camel, hare, and the rabbit, for they are bringing up the cud but the hoof is not divided, unclean they are to you. And the swine, because it divides the hoof, yet does not chew the cud, it is unclean to you, you will not eat of their flesh, nor touch their dead carcass. These you shall eat of all that are in the waters, all that have fins and scales you can eat, and whatever does not have fins and scales you may not eat, it is unclean to you. Of all clean birds you will eat. But these are they that you will not eat, the eagle, ossifrage, osprey, hawk, falcon, and the vulture after their species, and every raven after their species, and the owl, night hawk, cuckoo, and the unclean bird of prey after their species. The little owl, the great owl, swan, pelican, gier eagle, cormorant, stork, heron after their species, the lapwing, and the bat. And every creeping thing that flies is unclean to you, they will not be eaten. But of all clean flying creatures you may eat. You will not eat of anything that dies of itself, you will give it to the foreigner that is in your gates, that he may eat it or you may sell it to the foreigner. For you are a sacred people to YHWH Elohim. You will not boil a young male goat in his mother's milk. You will truly tithe all the produce of your seed, that the field brings forth year by year. And you will eat before YHWH Elohim, in the place that he will choose to place his name, the tithe of your corn, wine, oil, and the firstborn of your herds and flocks, that you may learn to fear YHWH Elohim always. And if the journey is too long for you, so that you are not able to carry it, or if the place is too far from you, that YHWH Elohim will choose to set his name there, when YHWH Elohim has blessed you. Then will you turn it into money, and bind up the money in your hand and will go to the place that YHWH Elohim will choose. And you will bestow that money for whatever you desire, for oxen, sheep, wine, strong drink, or for whatever you desire, and you will eat there before YHWH Elohim, and you will rejoice, you and your household. And the Levite that is within your gates, you will not forsake him because he has no part or inheritance with you. At the end of 3 years you will bring forth all the tithe of your increase the same year, and will lay it up within your gates. And the Levite, because he has no part or inheritance with you, and the foreigner, and the fatherless and widow, that are within your gates, will come and will eat and be satisfied, that YHWH Elohim may bless you in all the work of your hand that you accomplish. At the end of every 7 years you will make a release from debt. And this is the manner of the release from debt. Every creditor that lends something to his neighbor will release the debt. He will not exact it from his neighbor or from his brother because it is called YHWH's release from debt. Of a foreigner you may exact it again, but what is yours with your brother your hand shall release from debt. Except when there is no poor among you because YHWH will greatly bless you in the land that YHWH Elohim gives you for an inheritance to possess. Only if you carefully listen to the voice of YHWH Elohim, to observe to do all these commandments that I command you this day. For YHWH Elohim blesses you, as he promised you, and you will lend to many nations, but you will not borrow, and you will reign over many nations, but they will not reign over you. If there is among you a poor man from one of your kinsmen within any of your gates in your land that YHWH Elohim gives you, then you will not harden your heart, nor shut your hand from your poor kinsman. But you will open your hand wide to him, and will certainly lend him sufficient for his need, and what he lacks. Beware that there is not a thought in your wicked heart saying, the 7th year, the year of release from debt is at hand. Then your eye becomes evil against your poor kinsman and you give him nothing, and he cries to YHWH against you, and it is sin to you. You will certainly give to him and your heart will not be grieved when you give to him, for because of this thing will YHWH Elohim bless you in all your works, and in every putting forth of your hand. For the poor will never cease out of the land, therefore I command you saying, you will open your hand wide to your kinsman, to your poor, and to your needy in your land. And if your brother, a Hebrew man, or Hebrew woman, is sold to you and serves you 6 years, then in the 7th year you will let him go free from you. And when you send him out free from you, you will not let him go away empty-handed. You will furnish him liberally out of your flock, and out of your floor, and out of your wineries, of the things that YHWH Elohim has blessed you with, and you will give to him. And you will remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and YHWH Elohim ransomed you, therefore I command you this thing today. And it will be if he says to you, I will not go away from you because he loves you in your house, because he is beneficial with you. Then you will take a boring instrument, and thrust it through his ear and through the door, and he will be your slave for the ages. And also to your female slave you will do likewise. It will not seem hard to you, when you send him away free from you because he has been worth a double hired servant to you, in serving you 6 years, and YHWH Elohim will bless you in all that you accomplish. All the firstborn males that come of your herd and from your flock you will consecrate to YHWH Elohim. You will do no work with the firstborn of your bulls, nor shear the firstborn of your sheep. You will eat it before YHWH Elohim year by year in the place that YHWH will choose, you and your household. And if there is any blemish in it, for example, if it is lame, blind, or has any malignant blemish, you will not sacrifice it to YHWH Elohim. You will eat it within your gates, the unclean and the clean person will eat it alike, as the gazelle and as the deer. Only you will not eat its blood, you will pour it upon the ground as water. Observe the month of Abib, and celebrate the Passover to YHWH Elohim, because in the month of Abib YHWH Elohim brought you out of Egypt by night. You will therefore sacrifice the Passover to YHWH Elohim, from the flock and the herd, in the place that YHWH will choose to place his name. You will eat no leavened bread with it, 7 days you will eat unleavened bread, even the bread of affliction, because you came out of the land of Egypt in haste. This is so that you may remember the day when you came out of the land of Egypt all the days of your life. And there will be no leavened bread seen with you in all your borders for 7 days, neither will anything of the flesh, that you sacrifice the first day at sunset remain all night until sunrise. You may not sacrifice the Passover within any of your gates, that YHWH Elohim gives you. But at the place that YHWH Elohim will choose to place his name in, there you will sacrifice the Passover at sunset, at the going down of the sun, in the season that you came out of Egypt. And you will roast and eat it in the place that YHWH Elohim will choose, and then at sunrise return to your tents. For 6 days you will eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day there will be a solemn assembly to Yhwh Elohim. You will do no work on that day. You will count 7 weeks for yourself. You will begin to count 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle to the standing grain. And you will observe the Feast of Weeks to Yhwh Elohim with a tribute of a free will offering of your hand, which you will give to Yhwh Elohim, according as Yhwh Elohim has blessed you. You will rejoice before Yhwh Elohim, you and your son, daughter, male and female slaves, as well as the Levite that is within your gates, and the foreigner, and the fatherless and widow that are among you, in the place that Yhwh Elohim has chosen to place his name. And you will remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and you will observe and institute these statutes. You will observe the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days, after you have gathered in your corn and your wine. And you will rejoice in your festival gathering, you, and your son, daughter, male and female slaves, as well as the Levite, foreigner, and the fatherless, and widow that are within your gates. For 7 days you will observe a solemn festival to Yhwh Elohim in the place that Yhwh will choose, because Yhwh Elohim will bless you in all your increase, and in all the works of your hands, therefore you will certainly rejoice. For 3 times in a year will all your males appear before Yhwh Elohim in the place that he will choose, in the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and in the Feast of Weeks, and in the Feast of Tabernacles, and they will not appear before Yhwh empty. Every man will give as he is able, according to the blessing of Yhwh Elohim that he has given you. Judges and officers you will appoint yourselves in all your gates, that Yhwh Elohim gives you, throughout your tribes, and they will judge the people with just judgment. You will not extend the time of judgment, you will not respect persons, neither take a gift, because a gift will blind the eyes of the wise, and pervert the words of the righteous. Righteousness. Righteousness. You will pursue so that you live, and have possessed the land that Yhwh Elohim is giving to you. You will not plant yourself a grove of any trees near to the altar of Yhwh Elohim, that you will make for yourselves. Neither will you set yourself up any image that Yhwh Elohim hates. You will not sacrifice to Yhwh Elohim any bulls or sheep that are blemished, or any malignant ones, because that is a disgusting thing to Yhwh Elohim. If there is found among you, within any of your gates, that Yhwh Elohim gives you a man or woman that has done bad in the sight of Yhwh Elohim, in transgressing his covenant pledge, and has gone and served other Elohim and worshipped them, either the sun, moon, or any of the host in the visible universe, that I have not commanded. And it is told to you, and you have heard of it, and inquired thoroughly, and it is true, the thing being certain, that such abomination is done in Israel. Then you will bring forth that man or woman that has committed that bad thing to your gates, even that man or woman, and will stone them with stones until they are dead. At the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses will he that is worthy of death be put to death, but at the mouth of 1 witness he will not be put to death. The hands of the witnesses will be first upon him to put him to death, and afterward the hands of all the people. So you will put this evil away from among you. If there arises a matter too hard for you in judgment, between blood and blood, between dispute, and between wound and wound, being matters of controversy within your gates, then you will arise, and get yourself up to the place that Yhwh Elohim will choose. And you will come to the priests the Levites, and to the judge that will be in those days, and inquire, by Urim Thummim, and they will show you the sentence of judgment. And you will do according to the tenor of the word that they declare to you, they of the place that Yhwh will choose, and you will observe to do according to all that they direct you. According to the sentence of the law that they will teach you, and according to the judgment that they will tell you, you will accomplish it. You will not decline from the sentence that they will reveal to you, to the right hand or the left. And the man that will act arrogantly, and will not listen to the priest that stands to minister there before Yhwh Elohim, or to the judge, even that man will be executed, and you will put away the evil from Israel. And all the people will hear, and fear, and will not act in arrogance. When you are come to the land that Yhwh Elohim gives you, and will possess it, and will live there, and will then declare, I will set a king over me the same as all the nations that surround me. You will certainly set over yourself a king on whom Yhwh does elect, from among your kinsmen. You will set over yourself a king, but will not be able to set over yourself a foreigner who is not your kinsman. He will not multiply chariot horses to himself, nor will cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he should multiply chariot horses, for as much as Yhwh has commanded you, that you will not return that way again. Neither will he multiply women to himself so that his heart turns not away, neither will he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. And it will be, when he sits upon the throne of his kingdom, that he will write him a copy of this law in a book out of that which is before the priests the Levites. And it will be with him, and he will read in it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear Yhwh his Elohim, to observe all the words of this law and these statutes to accomplish them. That his heart will not become lofty above his kinsmen, and that he turns not aside from the commandment, to the right hand, or to the left, to the end that he may perpetuate his days in his kingdom, he and his children, among those of Israel. Neither the priests the Levites or any of the tribe of Levi, will have either portion or inheritance with Israel. The altar fire of Yhwh and his inheritance will they eat. Therefore they will have no inheritance among their kinsmen, because Yhwh is their inheritance, as he has promised to them. And this will be the priest's privilege from the people, from them that sacrifice, whether it is ox or sheep, and they will give to the priest the shoulder, and the 2 cheeks, and the belly. The first fruit also of your corn, wine, oil, and the first of the fleece of your sheep, will you give to him. For Yhwh Elohim has chosen him out of all your tribes, to stand to serve in the name of Yhwh, him and his sons for the ages. And if a Levite comes from any of your gates out of all Israel, where he traveled, and comes with all the desire of his mind to the place that Yhwh will choose, then he will serve in the name of Yhwh Elohim, as all his kinsmen the Levites do, that stand there before Yhwh. They will have equal portions to eat, besides what comes from the sale of his inheritance. When you are come into the land that Yhwh Elohim gives to you, you will not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. There will not be found among you anyone that makes his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that practices divination, or a conjurer, fortune teller, witch, charmer, inquirer of familiar spirits, wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto Yhwh, and because of these disgusting things Yhwh Elohim does drive them out from before you. You will be wholesome with Yhwh Elohim. For these nations, that you will possess, listen to conjurers and to diviners, but as for you, Yhwh your Elohim has not permitted you to do so. Yhwh Elohim will raise up unto you a prophet from among you, from your kinsmen, like unto me, and unto him you will listen. According to all that you desire of Yhwh Elohim in Horeb in the day of the company, saying, Let me not hear again the voice of Yhwh Elohim, neither let me see this great supernatural fire any more, so that we do not die. And Yhwh spoke to me, They have well spoken what they have declared. I will raise them up a prophet from among their kinsmen, like unto you, and will put my words in his mouth, and he will speak to them all that I will command him. And whoever will not listen to my words that he will speak in my name, I will require it of him. But the prophet that will arrogantly speak a word in my name, that I have not commanded him to speak, or that will speak in the name of other alone, even that prophet will die. And if you say in your heart, How will we know the word that Yhwh has not spoken? When a prophet speaks in the name of Yhwh, if the thing does not follow, nor comes to pass, that is, the thing that Yhwh has not spoken, but the prophet has spoken it arrogantly, you shall not live with him. When Yhwh Elohim has cut off the nations, whose land Yhwh Elohim bestows to you, and you dispossess them and live in their cities and in their homes. You will separate 3 cities for yourself located centrally in your land, that Yhwh Elohim gives you to possess. You will prepare yourself a road, and will divide into 3 parts the border of your land that Yhwh Elohim will cause you to inherit, and it will be for the one fleeing there of every manslayer. And this is the case of the slayer, which will flee to the city so that he may live. Whoever kills his neighbor unwittingly, whom he did not hate in times past. As when a man goes into the woods with his neighbor to cut wood, and his hand drives a stroke with the axe to cut down the tree, but the head slips from the wooden handle, and falls upon his neighbor so that he dies. He will flee to one of those cities and remain alive. Unless the avenger of the blood chases the slayer, while his heart is hot, and overtakes him because the road is long, and kills him, whereas he was not worthy of death inasmuch as he did not hate him in times past. Therefore I command you, saying, You will separate 3 cities for yourselves. And if Yhwh Elohim enlarge your borders, as he has adjured to your forefathers, and gives you all the land that he promised to give to your ancestors. If you will observe all these commandments to institute them, that I command you this day, to love Yhwh Elohim, and to walk daily in his ways, then you will add 3 more cities for yourselves, beside the 3 you already have. That innocent blood is not shed in your land, that Yhwh Elohim bestows to you for an inheritance, and so that you will not be guilty of bloodshed. But if anyone hates his neighbor, and lies in wait for him, and rises up against him, and kills him mortally so that he dies, and then escapes into one of these cities, then the elders of his city will send and fetch him, and deliver him into the hand of the avenger of blood so that he may die. Your eye will not pity him, but you will remove the guilt of innocent blood from Israel, that it may go well with you. You will not displace your neighbor's landmark, that they of old times have set in your inheritance, that you will inherit in the land that YHWH alone bestows to you for a possession. One witness will not rise up against a man for any depravity, or for any sin, in any sin that he sins, at the mouth of 2 witnesses, or at the mouth of 3 witnesses will the matter be established. When a violent witness does arise against a man, to testify against him apostasy, then both the men, between whom the controversy is, will stand before YHWH, before the priests and the judges, that will be in those days. And the judges will make diligent inquiry, and if the witness is a false witness, and has testified falsely against his kinsman, then will you do to him, as he had thought to have done to his kinsman, so you will put the evil away from among yourselves. And those that remain will hear, and fear, and will commit no more such evils among you. Your eye will not pity, but life will go for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. When you go out to battle against your enemies and see horses and chariots, and a people stronger than yourself, do not be afraid of them, because YHWH alone is with you, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. When you are come close into the battle, then the priest will approach and speak to the people, and will say to them, Hear, O Israel, you approach this day into battle against your enemies, so let your hearts be not faint, fear not, and do not be terrified, neither tremble because of them. For YHWH alone is he that goes with you, to fight for you against your enemies and to deliver you. And the officer shall speak to the people, saying, What man is there that has constructed a new house, and has not dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house unless he dies in the battle, and another man dedicates it. And what man is there that has planted a vineyard, and has not yet eaten of it? Let him also go and return to his house, unless he dies in the battle, and another man eat from it. And what man is there that has betrothed a woman, and has not received her? Let him go and return to his house, unless he dies in the battle, and another man acquires her. And the officers will speak further to the people, and they will say, What man is there that is fearful and weak of heart? Let him go and return to his house, unless his kinsman's heart grows fearful as well as his mind. And it will be, when the officers have made an end of speaking to the people, that they will make captains from the armies to lead the people. When you come close to a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. And if they make an answer of peace and open to you, then it will be, that all the people that are found there will be tributaries to you, and they will serve you. And if they will make no peace with you, but will make war against you, then you will besiege it. And when YHWH alone has delivered it into your hands, you will kill every male there with the edge of the sword. But the women and children, cattle, and all that is in the city, even all its spoil you will take for yourself, and you will eat the plunder of your enemies, that YHWH alone has given you. So you will do to all the cities that are a very great distance from you, that are not of the cities of these nations, but of the cities of these people, that YHWH alone will give to you for an inheritance, you will save alive nothing that breathes. But you will devote to destruction all of them, namely the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, as YHWH your alone has commanded you to perform this genocide. So that they do not teach you of all their disgusting things that they have done unto their alone, so that you would sin against YHWH your alone. When you will besiege a city a long time, in making war against it to take it, you will not destroy its trees by forcing an axe against them. You may eat of them, but you will not cut them down, for the tree of the field is man's life to employ them in the siege. Only the trees that you know that they are not trees for fruit, you will destroy and cut them down, and you will construct bulwarks against the city that makes war with you until it is subdued. If one is found slain in the land that YHWH alone bestows to you for a possession, lying in the field, and it is not known who has killed him, then your elders and judges will come forth, and they will measure to the cities that are around him that is slain. Then it will be determined which city is nearest to the slain man, and the elders of that city will take a heifer that has not been worked with, and that has not drawn in the yoke. And the elders of that city have brought down the heifer to a hard valley, which is not tilled nor sown, and have beheaded there the heifer in the valley. And the priests, the sons of Levi, will approach, because YHWH alone has chosen them to minister to him, and to bless in the name of YHWH, and by their word will every controversy and every stroke be tested. And all the elders of that city, which are next to the slain man, will wash their hands over the heifer that is beheaded in the valley. And they will answer and say, Our hands have not shed this blood, neither have our eyes seen it. Be merciful, O YHWH, to your people Israel, whom you have ransomed, and lay not innocent blood to your people of Israel's account. And the blood will be forgiven them. So will you put away the guilt of innocent blood from among you, when you will do what is right in the sight of YHWH. When you go out to war against your enemies, and YHWH alone has delivered them into your hands, and you have taken them captive. And see among the captives a beautiful woman, and have a desire to her, that you would have her to be your woman. Then you will bring her home to your house, and she will shave her head, and trim her nails. And she will remove the clothing of her captivity from off her, and will remain in your house and shed tears for her father and her mother for a full month. And after that you will go into her, and you will be her husband, and she will be your woman. But if you have no delight in her, then you will let her go wherever she will, but you will not sell her at all for money, you will not make merchandise of her, because you have mishandled her. If a man has 2 women, one beloved, and another hated, and they have gendered him children, both the beloved and the hated, and if the firstborn son is hers that was hated, then when he makes his sons to inherit what he has, then he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn before the son of the hated, that indeed is the firstborn. But he will acknowledge the son of the hated as the firstborn, by giving him a double portion of all that he has. For he is the beginning of his strength, the right of the firstborn is his. If a man has a stubborn and rebellious son, that will not obey the voice of his dad, or the voice of his mother, and that when they have disciplined him, will not obey them, then will his dad and his mother lay hold on him, and bring him out to the elders of his city, and to the gate of his town. And they will say to the elders of his city, This our son is stubborn and rebellious, he will not obey our voice, and he is a worthless drunkard. Then all the men of his city will stone him with stones, that he dies, so you will put evil away from among you, and all Israel will hear and fear. If a man has committed a sin worthy of death, and he is to be put to death, and you hang him on a tree, his body will not remain all night on the tree, but you will certainly bury him that day, for he that is hanged is accursed of Elohim, that your land be not defiled, that YHWH Elohim gives to you for an inheritance. You will not see your brother's ox or his sheep go astray, and hide yourself from them, you will in any case return them again to your brother. And if your brother is not near to you, or if his identity is not known, then you will bring it to your own house, and it will be with you until your brother seeks after it, and you will restore it to him again. Similarly you will do with his donkey, and so you will do with his clothing, and with all lost things of your brothers that he has lost and you have found, you will do likewise, and you may not conceal your whereabouts. You will not see your brother's donkey or his ox fall down by the roadway, and hide yourself from them, you will certainly help him to lift them up again. The woman will not wear what pertains to a man, neither will a man put on a woman's clothing, for all that do so are abomination to YHWH Elohim. When you come upon a bird's nest in the road, in any tree or on the land, brood or eggs, and the mother sitting on the brood or on the eggs, then you will not take the mother with the young ones. But you will certainly let the dam go and take the young yourselves, that it may be well with you and that you may perpetuate your days. When you construct a new house, then you will make a parapet for your roof so that you do not bring blood upon your house, if any man happens to fall from there. You will not sow your vineyard with a mixture of things, unless the fullness of the seed that you do sow, and the increase of the vineyard, be separated. You will not plow with an ox and a donkey together. You will not wear a garment of mixed weave, like woolen and linen together. You will fashion your tassels upon the 4 quarters of your vesture, wherewith you cover yourself. If any man acquires a woman and goes in unto her and hates her, and brings up slander against her, giving her a bad name and says, I took this woman and when I came to her I found her not to be a virgin. Then will the dad, of the girl and her mother, take and bring forth the tokens of the girl's virginity to the elders of the city in the gate. And the girl's dad will say to the elders, I gave my daughter to this man to be his woman and he hates her. And lo, he has laid actions of words saying, I have not found to your daughter tokens of virginity, and these are the tokens of the virginity of my daughter. And they will spread out the garment before the elders of the city. The elders of that city will take that man and discipline him. And they will fine him 100 shekels of silver, 2.5 pounds, and give them to the dad of the girl, because he has brought up a bad name upon a virgin of Israel. And she will be his woman, he may not put her away during his lifetime. But if this thing is true, and the tokens of virginity are not found for the girl, then they will bring out the girl to the door of her dad's house, and the men of her city will stone her with stones so that she dies because she has done immorality in Israel. She played the prostitute in her dad's house, so you will put this badness away from among you. If a man is found having sexual relations with a woman married to a husband, then they will both be executed, both the man that slept with the woman and the woman. So you will put away badness from Israel. If a girl that is a virgin is betrothed to a husband and a man finds her in the city and has sex with her, then you will bring them both out to the gate of that city, and you will stone them with stones so that they die. The girl will be stoned because she did not cry out, being in the city, and the man because he has humbled his neighbor's woman. So you will put away badness from among you. But if a man finds a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man rapes her, forcing himself on her, then the man only that slept with her will die. But to the girl you will do nothing, there is in the girl no sin worthy of death, because as when a man rises against his neighbor, and murders him, even so is this matter. For he found her in the field, and the betrothed girl cried, and there was none to save her. If a man finds a girl that is a virgin that is not betrothed, and seizes her, and sleeps with her, and they are discovered, then the man that slept with her will give to the girl's father 50 shekels of silver, 1/4 pound, and she will be his woman because he has humbled her. He may not divorce her during his lifetime. A man will not take his dad's woman, nor discover his dad's skirt. Neither he that has been mutilated by crushing nor he that has had his penis cut off will enter the company of YHWH. A bastard will not enter into the company of YHWH, even to his 10th generation he will not enter into the company of YHWH. An Ammonite or Moabite will not enter into the company of YHWH, even to their 10th generation will they not enter into the company of YHWH for the ages. Because they met you not with bread and water in the road, when you came out of Egypt, and because they hired against you Balaam the son of Beor of Pethor of Mesopotamia, to curse you. Nevertheless YHWH alone would not listen to Balaam, but YHWH alone turned the curse into a blessing for you because YHWH alone loved you. You will not seek their peace nor their prosperity all your days for the ages of time. You will not abhor an Edomite, for he is your brother, you will not abhor an Egyptian, because you were a foreigner in his land. The children that are gendered of them will enter into the company of YHWH in their 3rd generation. When the army goes out against your enemies, then guard yourself from every bad thing. If there is among you any man, that is not clean by reason of uncleanness that has a nocturnal ejaculation at night, then he will go outside the camp, he will not come within the camp. But it will be when sunset arrives, he will wash himself with water, and when the sun goes down he will come into the camp again. You will have a place also, outside the camp where you will go out to. And you will have a shovel among your weapons, and it will be used for when you will take a crap, then you will dig a latrine and cover your excrement. For YHWH alone walks among your camp, to deliver you and to give up your enemies before you, therefore will your camp be sacred, that he sees no unclean thing in you, and then turns away from you. You will not deliver to his master the slave that is escaped from his master unto you. He will live with you, even among you in that place that he will choose in one of your gates, where it suits him best and you will not oppress him. There will be no prostitutes from the daughters of Israel, nor a male temple prostitute from the sons of Israel. You must not bring the earnings of a female prostitute or a male prostitute into the house of YHWH alone to pay any vow, because YHWH alone counts both as an abomination. You will not charge your kinsman interest on money, food, or anything that earns interest. But to a foreigner you may charge interest, but to your kinsman you will not lend with interest, so that YHWH alone may bless you in all that you set your hand to in the land where you go to possess. When you will vow a vow to YHWH alone, you will not be slack to pay it, because YHWH alone will certainly require it of you and will put it to your account as a sin. But if you refrain from vowing, it will be no sin for you. What goes out of your lips you will observe and perform, even a freewill offering, according as you have vowed to YHWH alone, that you have promised with your mouth. When you come into your neighbor's vineyard, then you may eat grapes to your fill, at your own pleasure, but you will not put any in your vessel. When you come into the standing corn of your neighbor, then you may pluck the ears with your hand, but you will not move a sickle to your neighbor's standing corn. When a man has taken a woman and married her, and it comes to pass that she finds no favor in his eyes, because he has found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorce, and place it in her hands and send her out of his house. And when she is departed out of his house, she may go and be another man's woman. But if the latter husband hates her and writes her a bill of divorce, and places it in her hand, and sends her out of his house, or if the latter husband dies who had taken her to be his woman, her former husband that sent her away may not take her again to be his woman, after that she is unclean, for that is a disgusting thing before YHWH, and you will not cause the land to sin, that YHWH alone bestows to you for an inheritance. When a man has taken a new woman, he will not go out to war, neither will he be charged with any business, but he will be free at home 1 year, and will cheer up his woman that he has taken. No man will take the hand mills or the upper millstone to pledge, for he takes a man's life to pledge. If a man is found stealing any of his kinsmen of the children of Israel, and makes merchandise of him, or sells him, then that thief will die, and you will put the bad away from among yourselves. Take heed in the plague of leprosy that you observe diligently, and do according to all that the priests the Levites will teach you, as I commanded them so you will observe to do. Remember what YHWH alone did to Miriam by the road, after that you were come out of Egypt. When you will lend your brother anything, you will not go into his house to fetch his pledge. You will stand outside, and the man to whom you will lend will bring the pledge outside to you. And if the man is poor, you will not sleep with his pledge. In any case you will deliver him the pledge again when the sun goes down, that he may sleep in his own clothing and bless you, and it will be righteousness to you before YHWH alone. You will not oppress a hired servant, that is poor and needy, whether he is of your kinsmen, or of your foreigners that are in your land within your gates. Every day you will give him his wages, neither will the sun go down upon it, for he is poor and sets his heart upon it, unless he cries against you unto YHWH, and it is sin to you. The fathers will not be put to death for the children, neither will the children be put to death for the fathers. Every man will be put to death for his own sin. You will not pervert the judgment of the foreigner, nor of the fatherless, nor take a widow's clothes to pledge. But you will remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and YHWH alone ransomed you from there, therefore I command you to do this thing. When you cut down your harvest in your field, and have forgotten a sheaf in the field, you will not go again to fetch it. It will be left for the foreigner, for the fatherless and for the widow, that YHWH alone may bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat your olive tree, you will not go over the boughs again, it will be for the foreigner, for the fatherless, and for the widow. When you gather the grapes of your vineyard, you will not glean it afterward, it will be left for the foreigner, for the fatherless, and for the widow. You will remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, therefore I command you to do these things. When there is a strife between men, and they have approached unto the judgment, and they have judged, and declared righteous the righteous, and declared wrong the wrongdoer. Then it will be, if the criminal is worthy to be beaten, that the judge will cause him to lie down and to be beaten in his presence, according to his fault by a certain number. He may be given 40 stripes but not to exceed that, unless if he should exceed, and beat him above these with many stripes, then your brother should be dishonored in your eyes. You will not muzzle the ox when he treads out the corn. If relatives live together and one of them dies, and has no children, the woman of the dead will not marry outside the family. Her husband's brother will go in unto her, and take her to himself to be his woman, and will perform the duty of a husband's brother unto her. Then the first son she has will take over the rights of the brother who is dead, so that his name may not come to an end in Israel. But if the man is displeased to take his brother's woman, then let his brother's woman go up to the gate to the elders. Then she shall say, My husband's brother refuses to raise up unto his brother a name in Israel, he will not perform the duty of my husband's brother. Then the elders of his city will call him, and speak to him, and if he stands by it and says, I do not want to acquire her, then will his brother's woman come unto him in the presence of the elders, and loose his shoe from off his feet, and spit in his face, and will answer and say, So will it be done to that man that will not build up his brother's house. And his name will be called in Israel, the house of him that has his shoe loosed. When men brawl together one with another, and the woman of the one comes near to help her husband out of the hand of him that beats him, and puts out her hand, and takes him by his private parts, then you will cut off her hand, your eye will not pity her. You will not have in your bag different weights, a large and a small. You will not have in your house different measures, a large and a small. But you will have a perfect and just weight, and a perfect and just measure, so that your days may be prolonged in the land that YHWH alone gives you. For all that do such things, and all that do unrighteously, are an abomination to YHWH alone. Remember what Amalek did to you by the road, when you were come out of Egypt. How he met you by the way, and attacked the outermost parts of you, even all that were feeble behind you, when you were faint and weary, and he did not fear alone. Therefore it will be when YHWH alone has given you rest from all your enemies that surround you, in the land that YHWH alone bestows to you for an inheritance to possess. You will blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under the skies, and you will not forget it. When you are come in unto the land that YHWH alone gives you for an inheritance, and possess it, and reside therein, then you will take of the first of all the produce of the earth, that you will bring from your land that YHWH alone gives you, and will put it in a basket, and will go to the place that YHWH alone will choose to place his name. And you will go to the priest that will be in those days, and say to him, I profess this day to YHWH alone, that I am come to the country that YHWH adjured unto our forefathers to give us. And the priest will take the basket out of your hand, and set it down before the altar of YHWH alone. Then you will speak and say before YHWH alone, A Syrian ready to perish was my dad, and he went down into Egypt, and journeyed there with a few, and became there a nation, great, mighty, and populous. And the Egyptians treated us very badly and afflicted us, and laid upon us hard slavery. And when we cried to YHWH alone of our fathers, YHWH heard our voice and looked on our affliction, and our labor, and our oppression. Then YHWH brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand, and with an outstretched arm, and with great awe-inspiring spectacles, and with signs, and with miracles. He has brought us into this place, and has given us this land, even a land that flows with milk and honey. And now look, I have brought the first fruits of the land, that you, O YHWH, have given me. And you will set it before YHWH alone, and worship before YHWH alone. You will rejoice in every good thing that YHWH alone has given to you, and to your house, you and the Levite and the foreigner that is among you. When you have made an end of tithing all the tithes of your increase the third year, which is the year of tithing, and have given it to the Levite, the foreigner, the fatherless and the widow, that they may eat within your gates, and be filled. Then you will say before YHWH alone, I have brought away the sacred things out of my house and have given them to the Levite, and to the foreigner, the fatherless and to the widow. This was done according to all your commandments that you have commanded me. I have not transgressed your commandments, neither have I forgotten them. None of these things have been used in my mourning, nor did I remove any of it while being unclean, let alone offering any of it for the dead, but I have obeyed the voice of YHWH alone, and have done according to all that you have commanded me. Look down from your holy dwelling, from the cosmos, and bless your people Israel, and the land that you have given us, as you adjured to our forefathers, a land that flows with milk and honey. This day YHWH alone has commanded you to do these statutes and judgments, you will therefore observe and institute them with all your heart, and with all your mind. You have declared YHWH this day to be your alone, and to walk in his ways, and to observe his statutes, and his commandments, and his judgments, and to obey his voice. And YHWH has declared you this day to be the nation of his possession, as he has promised you, and that you should observe all his commandments. To make you high above all nations that he has made, in praise and in name and in honor, that you may become a sacred people to YHWH alone, as he has spoken. And Moses with the elders of Israel commanded the people, saying, Observe all the commandments that I command you this day. And it will be on the day when you will pass over Jordan into the land that YHWH alone gives to you, that you will set up great stones, and coat them with plaster. Then you will write on them all the words of this law, when you are passed over, that you may enter the land that YHWH alone bestows to you, a land that flows with milk and honey, as YHWH alone of your forefathers has promised you. Therefore it will be when you are gone over Jordan, that you will set up these stones that I command you this day, in Mount Ebal, and you will coat them with plaster. And there you will construct an altar to YHWH alone, an altar of stones, and you will not lift up any iron tool upon them. You will construct the altar of YHWH alone from whole stones, and you will offer whole burnt offerings there to YHWH your alone. You will offer peace offerings and will eat there, and rejoice before YHWH your alone. And you will write upon the stones all the words of this law very plainly. And Moses speaks, the priests, the Levites, also, unto all Israel, saying, Keep silent, and hear, O Israel, this day you have become a people to YHWH your alone. You will therefore obey the voice of YHWH alone, and institute his commandments and his statutes, that I command you this day. Then Moses charged the people that same day, saying, These will stand upon Mount Gerizim to bless the people, when you are come over Jordan, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Joseph, and Benjamin. And these will stand upon Mount Ebal to curse, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Zebulun, Dan, and Naphtali. And the Levites will speak, and say to all the men of Israel with a loud voice, Cursed is the man that fashions any graven or molten metal image, a disgusting thing to YHWH, the work of the hands of the craftsman, and places it in a secret location. And all the people will answer and say, So be it. Cursed is he that disgraces his dad or his mother. And all the people will say, So be it. Cursed is he that removes his neighbor's landmark. And all the people will say, So be it. Cursed is he that causes the blind to wander out of the road. And all the people will say, So be it. Cursed is he that perverts the judgment of the foreigner, fatherless, and widow. And all the people will say, So be it. Cursed is he that has sexual relations with his father's woman, because he uncovers his father's skirt. And all the people will say, So be it. Cursed is he that copulates sexually with any kind of animal. And all the people will say, So be it. Cursed is he that has sexual relations with his sister, the daughter of his father, or the daughter of his mother. And all the people will say, So be it. Cursed is he that has sexual relations with his mother-in-law. And all the people will say, So be it. Cursed is he that slays his neighbor secretly. And all the people will say, So be it. Cursed is he that takes a reward to slay an innocent person. And all the people will say, So be it. Cursed is he that does not confirm all the words of this law to institute them. And all the people will say, So be it. If you will diligently obey the voice of YHWH alone, to observe and institute all his commandments that I command you this day, then YHWH alone will set you on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings will light upon you, and overtake you, if you will obey the voice of YHWH alone. Blessed you will be in the city, and blessed you will be in the field. Blessed will be the progeny of your body, and the produce of your soil, and the progeny of your cattle, the increase of your oxen, and the flocks of your sheep. Blessed will be your basket and your kneading bowl. Blessed you will be when you come in, and blessed you will be when you go out. YHWH will cause your enemies that rise up against you to be struck before your face, they will come out against you one way and flee before you 7 ways. Then YHWH will command blessings upon you in your storehouses and in all that you set your hands to, and he will bless you in the land that YHWH alone bestows to you. YHWH will establish you as a sacred people to himself, as he has adjured to you, if you will observe the commandments of YHWH alone, and walk in his ways. And all people of the earth will see that you are called by the name of YHWH, and they will be afraid of you. And YHWH will make you plenteous in goods, in the progeny of your body, and in the progeny of your cattle, and in the produce from your soil, in the land that YHWH adjured to your forefathers to give you. YHWH will open to you his good treasure, the skies to give the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand, and you will lend to many nations, but you will not borrow. And YHWH will make you the head, and not the tail, and you will be above only, and you will not be beneath, providing you obey the commandments of YHWH alone that I command you this day, to observe and to institute them. And you will not stray from any of the words that I command you this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other alone to serve them. But if you will not obey the voice of YHWH alone, to observe to institute all his commandments and his statutes that I command you this day, then all these curses will come upon you and overtake you. Cursed you will be in the city, and cursed you will be in the field. Cursed will be your basket and your kneading bowl. Cursed will be the progeny of your body, and the produce of your land, the increase of your oxen, and the flocks of your sheep. Cursed you will be when you come in, and cursed you will be when you go out. YHWH will send upon you cursing, vexation, and reproof, in all that you set your hand to accomplish until you are destroyed, and until you perish quickly, because of the badness of your practices, whereby you have forsaken me. YHWH will make the pestilence overtake you until he has consumed you from off the land where you go to possess. YHWH will smite you with a wasting disease and with a fever, and with inflammation, and with an extreme fever, and with the sword, and with blighting, and with mildew, and they will pursue you until you perish. And your skies that are over your head will be brass, and the earth that is under you will be iron. YHWH will make the rain of your land powder and dust, from the skies it will come down upon you until you are destroyed. YHWH will cause you to be beaten before your enemies, you will go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them. You will be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And your carcasses will be meat for all flying creatures of the air, and for the beasts of the earth, and no man will wave them away. YHWH will smite you with the inflammation of Egypt and with the tumors, scab, and with the itch, whereby you cannot be healed. YHWH will strike you with madness and blindness, and astonishment of heart. You will grope at noonday, as the blind gropes in darkness, and you will not prosper in your ways, and you will only be oppressed and spoiled daily, and no man will rescue you. You will betroth a woman and another man will sleep with her, you will build a house but you will not dwell in it. You will plant a vineyard and will not gather its grapes. Your ox will be slaughtered before your eyes and you will not eat it, your donkey will be violently taken away from before your face, and will not be restored to you. Your sheep will be given to your enemies, and you will have none to recover them. Your sons and your daughters will be given to another people, and your eyes will look with desire with longing for them all day long, and there will be no strength left in your hand. The produce of your land, and all your labors will a nation that you do not know will eat up, and you will be only oppressed and crushed always, so that you will be maddened by what the sight of your eyes will see. YHWH will smite you in the knees and in the legs, with a malignant boil that cannot be healed, from the sole of your foot to the top of your head. YHWH will bring you, and your king that you will set over you, to a nation that neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you will serve other alone of wood and stone. You will become an astonishment, a proverb and a byword among all nations where YHWH will lead you. You will carry much seed out into the field and will gather but little in, for the locust will consume it. You will plant vineyards and dress them, but will neither drink of the wine, nor gather the grapes because the worms will eat them. You will have olive trees throughout all your borders, but you will not anoint yourself with the oil because your olive will drop off its fruit. You will gender sons and daughters, but you will not enjoy them because they will go into captivity. All your trees and produce from your land will the locust consume. The foreigner that is within you will get up above you very high, and you will come down very low. He will lend to you and you will not lend to him, he will be the head, and you will be the tail. Moreover, all these curses will come upon you and will pursue you, and overtake you until you are destroyed, because you obeyed not the voice of YHWH alone, to observe his commandments and his statutes that he commanded you. And they will be upon you for a sign and for a portent, and upon your offspring for the ages. Because you served not YHWH alone with joyfulness and with gladness of heart during the times of prosperity. Therefore you will serve your enemies that YHWH will send against you, in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things, and you will put a yoke of iron upon your neck, until he has destroyed you. YHWH will bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle fly, a nation whose tongue you will not understand. A nation of fierce presence, that will not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And he will eat the progeny of your cattle, and the produce from your land until you are destroyed, which also will not leave you either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of your oxen, or flocks of your sheep, until he has destroyed you. He will besiege you in all your gates, until your high and fortified walls come down, which you trusted in throughout all your land, and he will besiege you in all your gates throughout all the land that YHWH alone has given you. And you will eat the progeny of your own body, the flesh of your sons and of your daughters that YHWH alone has given you, in the siege and in the distress that your enemies will distress you with. So that the man that is soft among you and very dainty, his eye will be evil toward his brother and toward the woman of his bosom and toward the remainder of his surviving children. So that he will not give to any of them from the flesh of his children whom he will cannibalize, because he has nothing left to himself in the siege, and in the distress that your enemies will distress you within all your gates. The tender and delicate woman among you, that would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for being pampered and delicate, her eyes will be evil toward the husband of her bosom and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her babies that come out from between her feet, and toward her children that she will gender, because she will cannibalize them for one of all things secretly in the siege and distress that your enemy will distress you within your gates. If you will not observe to institute all the words of this law that are written in this book so that you may fear his glorious and fearful name, YHWH alone, then YHWH will make your plagues beyond one's power, and the slaughter of your offspring, even intensely lasting conquest, and malignant sicknesses made lasting. Moreover he will bring upon you all the diseases of Egypt, which you were afraid of, and they will overtake you. Also every sickness and every plague that is not written in the book of this law, then will YHWH bring upon you until you are destroyed. And you will be left few in number, whereas you were as the stars of the cosmos for multitude, because you would not obey the voice of YHWH alone. As YHWH rejoiced over you to do you good and to multiply you, so YHWH will rejoice over you to destroy you, and to bring you to nothing, and you will be plucked from off the land where you go to possess. And YHWH will scatter you among all people, from one end of the earth even to the other, and there you will serve other alone that neither you nor your ancestors have known, even of wood and stone. And among these nations you will find no ease, neither will the sole of your feet have rest, but YHWH will give you there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. And your life will hang in doubt before you, and you will fear day and night, and will have no assurance of your life. In the morning you say, oh that it were sunset. And at sunset you say, oh that it were sunrise. From the fear of your heart that you are fearful with, and the things that your eyes will see. And YHWH will bring you into Egypt again with ships, by the way that I spoke unto you. You will see it no more again, and there you will be sold to your enemies for slaves and slave girls, but no man will buy you. These are the words of the covenant that YHWH commanded Moses to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab, besides the covenant that he made with them in Horeb. Moses called to all Israel and said to them, You have seen all that YHWH did before your eyes in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh, and to all his servants and to all his land. The great testing that your eyes have seen, the signs and those great miracles. Yet YHWH has not given you a heart to perceive, and eyes to see and ears to hear, unto this day. And I have led you 40 years in the uninhabited lands, your clothes have not become old, and your shoes have not worn out upon your feet. You have not eaten bread, neither have you drank wine or strong drink, so that you might know that I am YHWH alone. And when you came to this place, Sihon the king of Heshbon, and Og the king of Bashan, came out against us to battle, and we conquered them. We took their land and gave it for an inheritance to the Reubenites, and Gadites, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh. Observe therefore the words of this covenant and institute them, so that you may prosper in all that you do. You stand this day all of you before YHWH alone, the captains of your tribes, your elders and officers, with all the men of Israel. Your children, your women, and your foreigners that are in your camp, from the cutter of your wood to the water-drawing women. That you should enter into the covenant pledge with YHWH alone, and into his oath that YHWH alone makes with you this day. That he may establish you today for a people unto himself, and that he may be to you in Elohim, as he has spoken to you, and as he has adjured to your forefathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Neither with you only do I make this covenant and this oath, but with him that stands here with us this day before YHWH alone, and also with him that is not here with us this day. For you know how we have lived in the land of Egypt, and how we came through the nations that you passed by. And you have seen their abominations and their idols, wood and stone, silver and gold, that were among them. Beware unless there is among you man, or woman, or family, or tribe, whose heart turns away this day from YHWH alone, to go and serve alone from these nations, unless there should be among you a root that bears poison and bitterness. When such a person hears the words of this curse, that he blesses himself in his heart saying, Prosperity will I have, although in the stubbornness of my heart I go on, so that the drunkenness adds itself to the thirst. YHWH will not spare him, but then the nostrils of YHWH and his jealousy will smoke against that man, and all the curses that are written in this book will descend upon him, and YHWH will blot out his name from under the skies. And YHWH will separate him to evil out of all the tribes of Israel, according to all the curses of the covenant that are written in this book of the law. So that the generations to come of your children that will rise up after you, and the foreigner that will come from a distant land will say, when they see the plagues of that land, and the sicknesses that YHWH has laid upon it, and that the whole land is brimstone, salt and burning, that it is not sown nor grows up any grass, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, that YHWH overthrew in his anger, and in his wrath. Even all nations will say, Why, has YHWH done so to this land? What is the meaning of the heat of this great anger? Then men will say, Because they have forsaken the covenant of YHWH alone of their forefathers that he made with them when he brought them out of the land of Egypt. For they went in and served other Elohim and worshipped them, Elohim whom they did not know, and whom he had not given to them. And the nostrils of YHWH flared against this land, to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book. And YHWH rooted them out of their land in anger, and in wrath, and in great indignation and cast them into another land as it is this day. The secret things belong to YHWH alone, but those things that are revealed belong to us and to our children for the ages, that we may institute all the words of this law. When all these things are come upon you, the blessing and the curse, that I have set before you, and you will call them to mind among all the nations, where YHWH alone has driven you, and will return to YHWH alone, and will obey his voice according to all that I command you this day, you and your children, with all your heart and with all your mind. Then YHWH alone will turn back your captivity, and will have compassion on you, and will return and gather you from all the nations, where YHWH alone has scattered you. If any of you are driven out to the outermost parts of the cosmos, from there will YHWH alone gather you, and from there will he fetch you. And YHWH alone will bring you into the land that your forefathers possessed, and you will possess it and he will do you good, and multiply you greater than your ancestors. And YHWH alone will circumcise your heart, and the heart of your offspring, to love YHWH alone with all your heart and with all your mind so that you may live. Then YHWH alone will put all these curses upon your enemies, and on them that hate you, who had persecuted you. And you will return and obey the voice of YHWH, and institute all his commandments, that I command you this day. Then YHWH alone will make you plenteous in every work of your hand, in the progeny of your body, and in the progeny of your cattle, and in the produce from your soil. This happens for goodness because YHWH will again rejoice over you for good, as he rejoiced over your forefathers. If you will obey the voice of YHWH alone, to observe his commandments and his statutes that are written in this book of the law, and if you turn to YHWH alone with all your heart, and with all your mind. For this commandment that I command you this day, it is not hidden from you, neither is it far off. It is not in the cosmos so that you should say, Who will go up for us to the abode of the stars and bring it to us, that we may hear it and institute it? Neither is it beyond the sea, that you should say, Who will go over the sea for us and bring it to us, that we may hear it and institute it? But the word is very close to you, in your mouth and in your heart so that you may institute it. See, I have set before you this day life and good, and death and badness. In that I command you this day to love YHWH alone, to walk in his ways, and to observe his commandments and his statutes and his judgments so that you may live and multiply, and YHWH alone will bless you in the land where you are going to possess. But if your heart turns away, so that you will not hear but will be drawn away, and worship other Elohim, and serve them, I denounce to you this day, that you will certainly perish, and that you will not perpetuate your days upon the land where you pass over Jordan to enter in to possess. I call the cosmos and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing, therefore choose life, that both you and your posterity may live. That you may love YHWH alone, and that you may obey his voice, and that you may follow closely to him for he is your life, and the length of your days. Then you may live in the land, that YHWH adjured to your forefathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and to Jacob, to give to them. Moses went and spoke these words to all Israel. He said to them, I am 120 years old this day, I can no more go out and come in, also YHWH has said to me, you will not pass over this Jordan. YHWH alone, he will pass over before you and he will destroy these nations from before you and you will possess them. And Joshua, he will pass over before you as YHWH has said. And YHWH will do to them as he did to Sihon and to Og, kings of the Amorites, and to their land that he destroyed. YHWH will devote them up before your presence, that you may do to them according to all the commandments that I have commanded you. Be strong and of good courage, fear not, nor be afraid of them because YHWH alone, he is the one that will go with you, he will not fail you nor forsake you. Moses called to Joshua and spoke to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and of good courage because you must go with this people to the land that YHWH has adjured to their fathers to give them, and you will cause them to inherit it. And YHWH, he is the one that will go before you, he will be with you, he will not fail you, neither forsake you, so do not fear, neither be dismayed. Then Moses wrote this law and delivered it to the priests, the sons of Levi, that carry the ark of the covenant of YHWH, and to all the elders of Israel. Moses commanded them saying, at the end of 7 years, in the appointed time, the year of release, in the Feast of Tabernacles. When all Israel has come to appear before YHWH alone in the place that he will choose, you will read this law before all Israel in their hearing. Gather the people together, men, women, children, and the foreigner that is within your gates, that they may hear and that they may learn and fear YHWH alone, and observe to institute all the words of this law. And that their children, that have not known anything, may hear and learn to fear YHWH alone, as long as you live in the land where you pass over Jordan for your possession. Then YHWH spoke to Moses, look, your days approach that you must die, so call Joshua, and present yourselves in the tabernacle at the appointed place, that I may give him a command. And Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves in the tabernacle at the appointed place. And YHWH appeared in the tabernacle in the pillar of the cloud mass column, and the pillar of the cloud mass stood over the entrance of the tabernacle. YHWH spoke to Moses, look, you will be laid to rest with your fathers, and this people will rise up, and go a-whoring after the Elohim of the foreigners of the land, where they go to be among. They will forsake me, and break my covenant that I have made with them. Then my nostrils will flare against them in that day, and I will forsake them, and I will hide my face from them, and they will be devoured. And many evils and troubles will befall them, so that they will say in that day, are not these evils come upon us because our Elohim is not among us? And I will certainly hide my face in that day for all the evils that they will have done, in that they are turned to other Elohim. Now therefore write this song for yourself, and teach it to the children of Israel, put it in their mouths that this song may be a witness for me against the children of Israel. For when I will have brought them into the land that I adjured to their fathers, that flows with milk and honey, and they will have eaten and filled themselves and become fat. Then they will turn to other Elohim and serve them, and provoke me, and will break my covenant. When many evils and troubles are befallen them, then this song will testify against them as a witness, because it will not be forgotten out of the mouths of their offspring. This is because I know their imaginations that they go about thinking, even now, before I have brought them into the land that I have adjured. Moses therefore wrote this song that same day and taught it to the children of Israel. And he gave Joshua the son of Nun a command and said, be strong and of good courage, because you will bring the children of Israel into the land that I adjured to them, and I will be with you. When Moses had made an end of writing the words of this law in a book, until they were finished, then Moses commanded the Levites that carried the ark of the covenant of YHWH, saying, take this book of the law and put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of YHWH Elohim, that it may be there for a witness against you. For I know your rebellion, and your stiff neck while I am yet alive with you this day, you have been rebellious against YHWH, and how much more after my death? Gather to me all the elders of your tribes, and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears, and call the cosmos and earth to record against them. Because I know that after my death you will ruin and corrupt yourselves, and turn aside from the way that I have commanded you. And evil will befall you in the end times, because you will do bad in the sight of YHWH, to provoke him to anger through the business of your hands. Moses spoke in the ears of all the company of Israel the words of this song, until they were ended. Give ear, O you skies, and I will speak, and hear, O land, the words of my mouth. My doctrine shall drop as the rain, my speech shall distill as the dew, as the small rain upon the tender herb, and as the showers upon the grass. Because I will publish the name of YHWH, ascribe you greatness unto our Elohim. He is the rock, his work is complete, for all his ways are justice, an Elohim of truth and without injustice, lawful and upright is he. They have corrupted themselves, their blemish is not his sons, a generation perverse and crooked. Do you thus repay YHWH, O foolish people and unwise? Is not he your father that has acquired you? Has he not made you and established you? Remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations, ask your dad, and he will show you, your elders, and they will tell you. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the borders of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For YHWH's portion is his people, Jacob is the company of his inheritance. He found him in a desert land, and in the waste howling desolate place, he led him about, he instructed him, he kept him as the apple of his eye. As an eagle stirs up her nest, flutters over her young, spreads wide her wings, takes them, and bears them on her wings. So YHWH alone did lead him, and there were no alien Elohim with him. He made him ride on the high places of the land, that he might eat the increase of the fields, and he made him to suck honey out of the rock, and oil out of the flinty rock. Butter of cows, and milk of sheep, with fat of lambs and rams from the breed of Bashan, and goats, with the fat of kidneys of wheat, and you did drink the pure wine of the grape. But Yeshurun became fat, and kicked, you are become fat, you are grown thick, you are covered with fatness. Then he forsook Elohim that made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy with alien Elohim, with abominations they provoked him to anger. They sacrificed to devils, not to Elohim whom they did not know, to Elohim that newly sprouted up, whom your fathers feared not. The rock that gendered you, you are unmindful of, and have forgotten Elohim that formed you. And when YHWH saw it, he abhorred them, because of the provoking of his sons, and of his daughters. And he said, I will hide my face from them, I will see what their end shall be, for they are a very obstinate generation, children in whom is no faith. They have moved me to jealousy with what is not alone, they have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those that are not a people, I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. For a supernatural fire is kindled in my nostrils, and will burn to the lowest Sheol, and will burn up the land with her produce, causing famine, and will blaze up the foundations of the mountains, volcanic activity. I gather upon them evils, my arrows I consume upon them. They will be exhausted with famine and consumed by heat, and bitter destruction. And the teeth of animals I send upon them, with poison of fearful things of the dust. The sword without and terror within, will destroy both the young man and the virgin, the nursing, infant, with the man of gray hairs. I said, I would scatter them into corners, I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. If not, the anger of an enemy I fear, lest their adversaries know, lest they say our hand is high and YHWH has not wrought all this. For they are a nation void of counsel, neither is there any understanding in them. Oh that they were wise, that they understood this so that they would consider these things in the end times. How should one chase 1,000, and two put 10,000 to flight, except their rock had sold them, and YHWH had closed them up? For their rock is not as our rock, even our enemies themselves being judges. For their vine is of the vine of Sodom, and of the fields of Gomorrah, their grapes are grapes of gall, their clusters are bitter things. Their wine is the poison of a venomous snake, and the cruel venom of the cobra. Is not this laid up in store with me, and sealed up among my treasures? To me belongs vengeance and requital, their foot will slide in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand, and the things that will come upon them make haste. Because YHWH will judge his people, and repent himself for his slave, when he sees that their power is gone, and there is none shut up, or left. And he shall say, where are their Elohim, their rock in whom they trusted, which did eat the fat of their sacrifices, and drank the wine of their drink offerings? Let them rise up and help you, and be your protection. See now that I, even I, am he, and there is no Elohim with me. I kill, and I make alive, I wound and I heal, neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. For I lifted up my hand to the cosmos and say, I live for the ages. If I sharpen my glittering sword, and my hand takes hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to my enemies, and will reward them that hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword will devour flesh, and that with the blood of the slain and of the captives, from the head of the freemen of the enemy. Rejoice, O you nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants, and will render vengeance to his adversaries, and will be merciful to his land, and to his people. And Moses came and spoke all the words of this song in the ears of the people, he and Joshua the son of Nun. Then Moses made an end of speaking all these words to all Israel, and he said to them, Set your hearts to all the words that I testify among you this day, that you will command your children to observe to institute all the words of this law. Because it is not a vain thing for you, because it is your life, and through these things you will perpetuate your days in the land where you pass over Jordan to possess. Yhwh spoke to Moses that very same day saying, Get yourself up into this mountain Abarim, unto Mount Nebo, that is in the land of Moab, that is opposite Jericho, and view the land of Canaan, that I give to the children of Israel for a possession. And die in the mountain where you go up, and be gathered to your people, as Aaron your brother died in Mount Hor, and was gathered to his people. Because you trespassed against me among the children of Israel at the waters of Meribah Kadesh, in the desert of Zin, because you did not consecrate me among the children of Israel. Yet you will see the land before you, but you will not enter the land that I give the children of Israel. And this is the blessing, that Moses the man of Elohim blessed the children of Israel with before his death. And he spoke, Yhwh came from Sinai, and rose up from Seir unto them, he shined forth from Mount Paran, and he came with 10,000 of holy ones, from his right hand when a fiery law of decrees for them. Yes, he loved the people, all his holy ones are in your hand, and they sat down at your feet, everyone will receive of your words. Moses commanded us a law, even the inheritance of the company of Jacob. And he became king in Yeshurun, when the heads of the people and the tribes of Israel were gathered together. Let Reuben live and not die, and do not let his men be few. This is the blessing of Judah, and he said, Hear, Yhwh, the voice of Judah, and bring him to his people, let his hands be sufficient for him, and you be a help to him from his enemies. And of Levi he said, Let your Thummim Urim be with your Holy One, whom ye did test at Massah, and with whom ye did contend with at the waters of Meribah. Who is saying of his father and his mother, I have not seen him. And his brother he has not seen, and his children he has not taken care of. For they have observed your sayings, and your covenant they have guarded. They will teach Jacob your judgments, and Israel your law, they will put incense before you, and whole burnt offering upon your altar. Bless, O Yhwh, his strength, and the work of his hands you accept. Smite the loins of his withstanders, and of those hating him, that they rise not. And of Benjamin he said, The beloved of Yhwh will live in safety by him, and Yhwh will cover him all the day long, and he will dwell between his shoulders. And of Joseph he said, Blessed of Yhwh is his land, for the precious things of the skies, for the dew and for the deep valleys that lie below. And for the precious produce brought forth by the sun, and for the precious things put forth by the moon. For the chief resources of the ancient mountains, and for the precious things of the lasting hills. For the precious things of the land and its fullness, and for the goodwill of him that resides in the bush, let the blessing come upon the head of Joseph, and upon the top of the head of him that was separated from his brothers. His glory is like the firstborn of his bulls, and his horns are like the horns of buffalo. With them he will push the people together to the ends of the land, and they are the 10,000 of Ephraim, and they are the thousands from Manasseh. Of Zebulun he said, Rejoice, Zebulun, in your going out. And Issachar, in your tents. They will call the people to the mountain, there they will offer sacrifices of righteousness, because they will extract from the abundance of the seas, and from treasures buried in the sand. Of Gad he said, Blessed is he that widens Gad, and he lives as a lion, and tears the arm with the crown from the head. And he provides the first part for himself, because there, the portion of the lawgiver is covered, and he comes with the heads of the people. The righteousness of Yhwh he has done, and his judgments with Israel. Of Dan he said, Dan is a lion's cub, and he will leap from Bashan. Of Naphtali he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full with the blessing of Yhwh, possess you the west and the south. Of Asher he said, Let Asher be blessed with children, let him be acceptable to his kinsmen, and let him dip his foot in oil. Your shoes will be iron and brass, and as your days, so will your strength be. There is none like unto Elohim of Yeshurun, who rides upon the skies in your help, and in his excellency on the clouds. The ancient of old Elohim is your refuge, and underneath are the age-lasting arms, and he will thrust out the enemy from before you and will say, Destroy them. Israel then will live in safety alone, the fountain of Jacob will be upon a land of corn and wine, also his skies will drop down dew. Happy are you, O Israel, who is like unto you, O people saved by Yhwh, the shield of your help, and who is the sword of your excellency. And your enemies will be found liars to you, and you will tread upon their high places. Moses went up from the plains of Moab to the mountain of Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, which is opposite Jericho. And Yhwh showed him all the land of Gilead, unto Dan, and all Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim, and Manasseh, and all the land of Judah, as far as the western sea, and the south, and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, unto Zoar. And Yhwh spoke to him, This is the land that I adjured to Abraham, Isaac, and to Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I have caused you to see it with your eyes, but you will not pass over. So Moses the servant of Yhwh died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of YHWH. And he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab, over against Beth-peor, but no man knows of his burial site to this day. And Moses was 120 years old when he died, and his eyes were not dim, nor his natural force abated. And the children of Israel shed tears for Moses in the plains of Moab for 30 days, so the days of weeping and mourning for Moses were ended. And Joshua the son of Nun was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands on him. And the children of Israel obeyed him, and did as YHWH commanded Moses. And there arose not a prophet since that time in Israel that was like Moses, whom YHWH knew face to face. In all the signs and the miracles that YHWH sent him to do in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh, and to all his servants, and to all his land, and in all that mighty hand, and in all the great terror that Moses effected in the sight of all Israel. The end of the Torah.